Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling. I'm your host, the Conqueror of Combat, and joining me, as always, is my amazing co-host, the Mistress of Mayhem. And tonight we're covering WWE Survivor Series War Games from November 30th. Let's get into it.
Let's go.
By the way, for those that aren't familiar with our working monikers, I'm Josh and she's Dawn.
Hi.
And let me just start out by saying that War Games was impressive.
Oh my god.
The card just on its face is pretty good. We have the women's War Games to start, and then 3 different championship matches in between, and then the men's War Games to close. And this was a hell of a show. We start out the night with the women's War Games, as each of the 2 teams end up making their way out and then getting, with the exception of the starters, locked in individual cages. And for those not familiar with how the War Games rules work, you have 2 teams, and 2 members, one from each team, will start the match, and then there will be 5 minutes, whereupon they will proceed to beat the heck out of each other. And then the team that had won the advantage earlier in the week, by way of a match, will get to send the first new member into the ring when that 5-minute timer is up. And then from that point on, I think it was 2 minutes after that, a new member from,
3.
alternating one from each team until everybody's in the ring will enter. And the people that are entering this like incredibly crazy 2-ring cage match are also allowed to stop on their way in and grab anything they want to bring into the match. Usually they look under the ring apron and find tables, fire extinguishers. It could be anything. And so to start, we have Bayley and Nia Jax. And they immediately just start beating the heck out of each other when they get in that ring. And I don't know if it's an unspoken rule, but it doesn't seem like any of the 2 people that start are allowed to take weapons in with them. It's just everybody who comes after.
Yeah. I noticed that. And I don't know if that's a rule or not, but,
it seemed to be a pattern that they followed at least. Oh, and to complete my synopsis of the rules, the actual match doesn't start until all competitors are in the ring, which means that by the time the match starts, most of the competitors have beaten the crap out of one another.
You'll love to see it.
But the match doesn't begin until everyone's in the ring, and then after that, it's pinfall or submission. And so this is a very unique and crazy and cool match format. And so after Bayley and Nia beat on each other for a while, Naomi is the next participant to make her way into the ring, and she decides to head into the ring with a kendo stick and proceeds to go off on Nia Jax. And don't get me wrong, I'll hit the big high spots of the match, but there's so much going on. There's no reasonable way that I could give this a play-by-play of everything that happens in the ring. But after wailing on each other for a little while, it looks like Naomi is getting the head, one-upping on Nia Jax, and there's a point where Jax is in the corner, And Naomi tries to take a toilet seat lid that she had found under the ring. Why?
I
Don't
don't
ask.
know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. But it's she places it over Nia Jax's head and proceeds to deliver like a very lengthy stink face to her while she's got a
There
toilet lid on her
I'm gonna
head.
tell you right now, there are so many people that saw the toilet seat go on her head and immediately pulled out some of the weird fetish stuff that they've been hiding in their closet. There are so many, so many people. And then when she did the stink face, those
Hmm.
people imploded.
Yeah.
There were several thousand people that imploded into shit confetti. Shit fetty is what they
Yes.
like to call it.
And not too long after that, I want to say Candice LeRae from Nia Jax's team.
Who?
Exactly. She makes her way to the ring and enters, and that kind of turns the tide a little bit, but not a lot. I think it gave Jax an opportunity to strike back with some chair shots, but Bailey and Naomi end up pinning Naomi. End up pinning Jax behind a chair in the corner, and I want to say that's when Candice LeRae interfered a bit, hitting a combination back senton splash and code breaker.
I don't know who this Candice Ray is, but she sounds like she could be cool.
Could be. I'm trying to remember who was in which positions for this, but essentially you've got Naomi and Bailey. One of them is on their knees, and the other one is standing next to the other. And Candace jumps over the one that was on their knees to code break the one that was standing there, and also simultaneously do a senton on the individual that was on their knees. Like I said, I can't remember if it was Naomi on the ground or Bailey, but it did end up being a kind of a cool improvised move. It looked neat.
Yeah,
Um,
that Candice Ray sure sounds like a firecracker. Kiwi. Kiwi.
and then I want to say not long after that, Candice LeRae hits a springboard moonsault, while again either Bailey or Naomi is on a set of chairs. And then after that, Bianca Belair is the next entrant. And she gets met on the way in by Candice LeRae, and Belair slams the cage door into her into her head. And Belair sets the crowd
Wow.
off by grabbing a table and tossing that into the ring.
Man, I tell you what, uh, this Candice Ray person really sounds like she needs to be given a shot.
You're picking on the poison pixie.
The who now?
Oh, and I want to say from there is a point where LeRae tries to do a poison Rana, but Belair's like, nah, bruh, and grabs her legs, and then Alabama slams her into the top turnbuckle of one of the
Ah,
corners, and
ah, no.
it was a pretty vicious looking move.
Candice, no. The light's gone out. You know what? Whatever. I like her moxie.
I do
Silent.
too.
You like
Right? Um, and then not long after that, I want to say Tiffany Stratton decides that it's Tiffy time, or rather, the clock did, and she makes her way to the steel monstrosity, and I want to say she just immediately smacks Bianca Belair with a trash can lid, and then hits a nice looking spine buster on Bianca Belair. She also did a really very good, like, I'm not usually a huge fan of like back spring, like, or handspring elbows, because when a lot of people do them, it looks like they don't necessarily line them up right, so they either have to jump too far for that back elbow, or they land too close and it doesn't look right. Like it just looks very tacked on to the end of somebody doing a gymnastics procession. But Tiffany Stratton, to her credit, when she does it more times than not, it legitimately looks like it powered up the elbow that follows, not just that it was sort of a throw together, but
Yeah.
look, I did 5 flips beforehand.
Yeah.
Um, so she looks good when she does it. Like you can see her gymnastic background really coming through here. And I want to say the next kind of big high spot after that was there was this move looked gross, and it's a combination of two relatively not that gross moves, but together they look great.
Mhm.
It was a crucifix backslide to Naomi. I want to say Stratton did it, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But Stratton, I'm going to say Stratton. Stratton does a backslide to Naomi, and Naomi is sitting there, in a position that you would normally be trying to kick out from, with her shoulders pinned to the mat and her legs in the air. And then Nia Jax comes along and decides that that looks like a terrible situation for you. Here, let me add a massive leg drop. And it just looked like it
Oh,
chopped Naomi's
yeah.
head off.
Yeah, that one did look particularly deadly. Yeah,
Um, Now I may be wrong with the attributions. I can't remember if it was Tiffany Stratton or if it was Candice LeRae that was assisting in that one.
it was
But on this
Tiffany in
next
that one.
one, I want to say that this was Candice LeRae, but maybe I'm not remembering it correctly. But it was a combination where Nia Jax picks up Bianca Belair in a Samoan drop position, right? And then somebody came off the top rope. I can't recall. Maybe you can. I can't. If it was Candice LeRae or Tiffany Stratton, but it was a combination of, I think it was Tiffany Stratton here too. It was a combination of a blockbuster or a neck breaker, whichever way you want to look at it, into a Samoan drop to Bianca Belair, and that looked pretty ferocious. I mean, it would have been ferocious all
Mhm.
on its own, um, just because Nia Jax throwing a Samoan drop is pretty much a death sentence, So you
Yeah.
add to it, and it just gets worse. Um,
Yeah,
And then
I
I want to
think
say Naomi decided it was time to just like clobber people with chairs for a while.
yeah, she wanted a chair to the spine rampage. And yeah, it was Tiffany in both of those.
Okay, good, good, good. And then I want to say the next kind of neat high spot was Bailey connecting with a middle rope stunner to Tiffany Stratton. And then after that, the Empress of the Skies made her way to the ring, Io Sky. Now, anybody who has watched a few of these War Games matches has seen that Io tends to do the most insane thing that she can possibly think of when she's in one of these matches, and this is no different. Before she even gets in the ring, she circles around to the far side of the ring and finds, I guess, a very special trash can that she had, I guess, prepared in advance. And this particular purple and yellow trash can has a set of straps on the inside so that she can kind of wear it almost like a backpack. And so she straps this trash can to herself and then proceeds to start climbing the exterior of the cage instead of coming in through the door.
Yeah, like a little psycho.
And she gets all the way up there and places the trash can kind of on these little platforms that have been set in the far corners of the cage, presumably to help with people that want to do crazy shit like Io's intending to do. And so she sets the trash can up there. Well, Candice LeRae saw her climbing up the exterior and decided to meet her halfway and climbs up the interior of that same side. And so LeRae and Sky start having sort of fisticuffs back and forth at the very top of this cage, which everyone's looking at because it's like, who's going to fall and is it going to be awful or awesome? And so they trade their back and forth shots, and Io comes down for what looks like she wanted to be a sunset flip powerbomb. And I don't know if the intention here is that Candice LeRae blocked it by hanging on really well, or that Io Sky missed it. But either way, the sunset flip powerbomb doesn't go off. So Sky instead turns around and hits a missile drop kick, and from there she does sort of a flipping kip up, which is kind of her thing. She does sort of a
Yeah.
forward roll into a kip up, and it looks pretty cool. And let's see, I want to say before we get to the next entrant, I want to say the next kind of big, nasty looking moves. There was a point where what was it? I want to say Nia Jax blasts Io Sky with a mega pounce, and Io Sky like was all "I believe I can fly" until she landed, and uh, and not too long after that, Raquel Rodriguez makes her way to the ring, and I have to be honest, like I think we both were like, "Uh oh," because Raquel, to be fair, has not looked that great in her spots since her return.
Yeah.
So we were apprehensive. But Rodriguez then gets in there and um I'm trying to think who she grabbed up, but she grabbed up someone and fall away slammed them into the steel cage. Was it Bailey?
I don't remember. There were bodies everywhere, but it could have been Bailey. I know that because right after that, it was Bailey and Belair that went after Rodriguez. So,
Gotcha.
uh, and then when they ganged up on her, uh, then Nia came in to help Rodriguez. So that
Yeah.
was her introduction, and I think I think basically what you were trying to get to is that she didn't suck immediately, and she didn't. She didn't suck
No,
at all, actually.
there were a couple of really good spots she did. There was that fall away slam. I want to say there was a point, and I'm trying to remember if it was here or if it was later, but there was a point where she did sort of like a spin out face buster, like and that looked really good. And leading in this particular situation, shortly after uh, Nia Jax comes to help Rodriguez, Bailey and Naomi get launched into steel, and then when they're on the ground, I want to say Jackson Rodriguez pick them up, both in a power bomb position, and then basically do a super collider to them where they walk their individual opponents to the opposite sides of the steel cage and smash them both into the steel cage, but then they continue to carry the power bomb position, and then they smack them into each other back in the middle, and then they turn around and power bomb them, and it was pretty awesome. Like it was a good set of moves that they did just there. It looked really cool.
Yeah.
And but that's the end of their coolness, because next up, entering in the ring, is Rhea Bloody Ripley. And for what it's worth, Rhea Ripley looks like a demon sent straight out of hell coming into this match,
She looked like she's
because
a part of House of Black. She looked like
she
a
does.
mini. She looked like a mini Brody.
She does, because her mask
Buddy,
is
sorry. She looked like a mini Buddy Lee.
Buddy Matthews.
Buddy Matthews. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
and and she looks really cool because she's been wearing a protective mask because of the orbital bone injury, right? And the protective mask that she's chosen to wear in this instance looks like some sort of ram skull demon face, and so she looks intimidating. And she's wearing what looks like some sort of like evil demon, almost like bathing suit. I don't know. Like it was pretty skimpy, but it still looked cool.
Yeah.
And so she makes her way into the ring and immediately hops in and uh well, she doesn't, sorry. I get ahead of myself. She grabs a table and she's trying to put it in the ring, and Raquel Rodriguez is trying to stop her from putting the table in the ring. And so what she ends up doing is it's sort of fulcrumed across the bottom rope. And instead of pushing against Rodriguez, she decides to slam the table down so that that Rodriguez's end of the table goes up like a seesaw and smacks her in the face.
Yeah.
And that allows Ripley to get the table into the ring, and then she enters the ring and starts just hammering Raquel Rodriguez. But shortly after that, Tiffany Stratton attacks Ripley with a trash can lid, and that sort of snuffs Rhea Ripley's initial heat into the match. Let's see. Moving on from there, the next sort of major spot I want to say is there was a point where Candice LeRae went ham on Io Sky with a kendo stick. And then Bianca Belair, who always is carrying sort of her own foreign object with her in terms of that braid, uses her hair to whip Candice LeRae, and you could hear the cracking. It was pretty good.
Yeah, she beat a lot of people with her hair.
Yeah.
There was hair beaten.
There was. But then after that, I want to say Rodriguez came in and demolished her with a big boot. And then Naomi came in after that with a running bulldog. And then when Naomi was left standing, Nia Jax just comes out of nowhere and hammers her with a clothesline. And then Rhea Ripley stands up against Nia Jax and delivers 3 straight headbutts to her while wearing this horned demon mask. And at that point, the final entrant is allowed to be called to the ring, and that is Liv Morgan. And Liv Morgan does what I anticipated. No one was surprised by this. Rhea Ripley is standing tall in the ring and just kind of come on, Liv. And Liv looks at the situation, and the look on her face is oh, hell no. And so she turns and walks down the entrance ramp like she's bailing on the match. And so that's what we're sitting there thinking. We're she just noped out of this thing. But then she comes back with a baseball bat. And we're oh, okay. She wanted to arm up first. I get it.
Yeah. She had a special one backstage. She had to go get it.
Yeah, it was her specifically engineered Rhea Ripley beat stick.
Beaten stick! I have one of those.
And for some reason, Rhea Ripley's response to this, when Liv Morgan shows up with a beat stick, a baseball bat, is to then remove her protective mask.
Yeah, they give you a nice surface by which you may use your beaten stick.
Right. She wanted to make sure that mask was protected. It was a really nice mask. And pretty straight away, Morgan gets the baseball bat kind of taken out of her hands, and Ripley immediately goes for the riptide. But then Nia Jax interferes, and both her and Tiffany Stratton proceed to gang up on Rhea Ripley. And once they've got Rhea kind of beat down, Liv grabs the baseball bat again and proceeds to go ham on the midsection of Rhea Ripley. And at this point, the announcers are oh my God, all of her ribs are broken. And I'm
God.
It's not looking so good for Rhea Ripley at this stage. And then Morgan, who I'm also unsurprised had this on hand, pulls out some handcuffs. And she's attempting to handcuff Rhea Ripley, but Io Sky makes the save with a double jump missile drop kick. And Ripley recovers enough to hit a big running knee strike on Tiffany Stratton. But then Candice LeRae pops in and lands a tornado DDT. And after that, Bianca Belair grabs hold of little Candice LeRae and throws her into the steel cage. And Naomi comes out of nowhere with an X Factor to Raquel Rodriguez.
Yeah.
After
I
which,
sure do want to see more of this Candice LeRae person you're speaking about.
after which Morgan hits a code breaker off the top. And I want to say Bailey then followed that up with a sunset flip powerbomb into the turnbuckles. And then Nia Jax hits a big Samoan drop for a 2 count. And it's at this point that Io Sky and Tiffany Stratton have sort of made their way to the opposite rings. And Sky is scaling towards that very fancy trash can. And Tiffany Stratton's on the opposite corner scaling to do something. She doesn't have a trash can that's foreshadowing what she's going to do. But once they make it to the top, Sky proceeds to armor up by putting this purple and yellow trash can over her entire upper body while she's facing away from the ring. And then she proceeds to launch with her like Orihara moonsault. And at this point, the women have divided into kind of two groups, and you have a group over near Io Sky and a group near Tiffany Stratton. And Tiffany Stratton simultaneously launches at when Sky does her moonsault. She launches into a swanton bomb off the top of the cage. And so both of these women end up landing on their respective groups of unsuspecting women. And this was one of the highest high spots of the match. Like, the swanton bomb off the top is ridiculous in and of itself, but
Yeah.
Io Sky pretty much putting a trash can over the top of her body and then just sort of blind faith moonsaulting towards the middle of the ring
Yeah.
is completely insane. And everybody is laid out for a little bit after this. Like everyone everywhere is just bark. So
Yeah.
and then after that, I want to say Tiffany Stratton recovered pretty quickly. I think her and Io probably recovered the fastest of anybody from those two giant aerials. And Stratton reaches over and reaches into a trash can that was there and pulls out her Money in the Bank briefcase and is basically standing over both Liv Morgan and Nia Jax and looks to be contemplating cashing in on one of them. And we were losing it at this point. We're like, oh man, is she going to do it? Is she going to cash in on him?
Again, many, mighty mo.
And I want to say Raquel Rodriguez is sitting there shouting at this situation because she's in the corner. And then Io Sky comes across from the other ring and has a fire extinguisher with her. A fire extinguisher that was placed in the ring earlier, by the way, by Bianca Belair when she made her way out. And she diffuses this whole situation by proceeding to use the fire extinguisher to create a fog cloud on that whole ring where nobody can do anything because she's spinning around like a smoke machine.
Oh, not everybody. Rhea Bloody Ripley could do something. She could use those handcuffs that were set up earlier to handcuff Rodriguez to the corner.
And she does.
And she does so, which we were only alerted to by the panicked screams of Raquel Rodriguez when she realized that she was handcuffed, and then the audience caught on, which they found a joyous occasion.
Yep, Rhea Ripley had snuck over from the other ring, and Rodriguez, who was sitting in the corner, did not realize at the time that Rhea Ripley quickly snapped on those handcuffs, and then once it was done, she was pissed.
Not happy at all. Rhea, however, was having a great time.
Yep, she was smiling and laughing at Rodriguez.
Shortly after that, we had like some more action from this LeRae person. that I keep hearing so much about. She sounds like a very nice young lady, and I am super, super excited to see her in the ring some more. This quote unquote poison pixie. She sounds like a little firecracker. Anyway, um, the action progresses. Uh, we had Naomi doing a pump knee strike to Stratton. Uh, at this point, after the dives from the two ladies from EO and from Tiffy, insanity. Like all hell is broken loose. There's shit going on all over the place. Um, but we do get our attention taken to Rhea and Liv Morgan, who are in the ring fairly close to Raquel Rodriguez. And this is after Liv Morgan had had enough and just started going after everybody with that baseball bat. she,
Yeah.
she had had enough of that bullshit. Um, while she was doing that, Belair was like, "Oh hell no!" And so she starts chasing her, and Rodriguez runs from that. And I'm sorry, not Rodriguez. Liv runs from that, but she runs Belair into a big boot from Rodriguez, who she's handcuffed. Her feet work just fine. So she was able to make sure that her delicate Liv Morgan was in a good position to do the Oblivion. Um,
Indeed, but you're heading towards the end of the match. There was
yeah.
one little section I wanted to mention before we get there. Over in the other ring, Naomi and Bailey, I think, right? Yeah. In the other ring, there was a point where Nia Jax had hit a Samoan drop on Bailey and followed it up with a leg drop, and then she gets saved by Io Sky. And so for a brief bit, Bailey and Sky look like they're going to bicker because of their past history. And
Yeah.
it buys enough time for Jax to recover and hit them both with a double clothesline. And at this moment, there is currently a table set up near one of the corners. And so it looks like Nia Jax is getting set up to do an annihilator to Bianca Belair on the table. And then Belair is, I want to say she was saved a bit by Naomi, and they both get over to Nia Jax and proceed to together powerbomb Nia Jax through a table, which ends up kind of taking Jax out of the picture for the remainder of the match. And that kind of brings us to what you were talking about happening in the other ring with Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. And if you want to continue, by all means.
Okay. Um, where was I? Oh yeah. She went for the Oblivion. She got a 2 count, and then Rhea, I think she gave Morgan a headbutt. Um, so Rhea was gonna go for the Riptide, but Rodriguez grabbed Liv's foot, brought her down so that she couldn't get the Riptide off. Uh, and I think didn't Liv Morgan get the Codebreaker off on Liv? I'm sorry, on Rhea?
I think so. I think
Like on the chair.
I think like on a chair. Yeah, yeah.
And then she was gonna go up to the top turnbuckle, and I guess that Oblivion did Jack, and I'm sorry, the Codebreaker did Jack and shit to Rhea, because she got up, punched Morgan in the ribs. Uh, uh, Morgan was trying to get away from the situation. Ripley, I think she blocked the. Oh, she was going for an avalanche Oblivion.
Yeah. And Ripley
Liv
said
was.
no.
And Ripley
Ripley was like,
said
nope.
no, and she did so with repeated back elbow smashes. Uh, and then she got the avalanche. Rhea, because they're up there now. They're up on the top rope now, right?
Yep.
And and they're they had the little fight. Rhea blocks the Avalanche Oblivion, and then gives her some elbow smashes to get her into the position for the Avalanche Riptide through the table. So there's a table set up down there. Rhea fucking Avalanche Riptides, Liv Morgan through the table. 1, 2, 3.
Yep. And Raquel was powerless to stop it because she's handcuffed into a corner.
Wah, wah, wah. I like the way that they got a lot of their big hitters or heavy hitters out of the way for this particular bout. Uh or else they would have just gotten, Rhea would have been stopped by Nia, or she would have been stopped by, it would have been something. So I like the way that they set all this up and got
Yep.
all their heavy hitters uh indisposed.
Yeah, because in the absence of a massive Nia Jax, who was tremendous in this match, by the way,
Yeah.
and Raquel, who was the other like kind of big heavy hitter in the ring,
She did good
um,
too. She did good too.
if you don't make them disappear, clearly there's nothing stopping Rhea from absolutely obliterating Morgan, which is the result that we see.
Yeah.
If nobody messes with him, Ripley destroys Morgan 100 out of 100 times.
Well, I don't know. I think if that young lady that you guys that we've just learned about, this Candice Ray, I think if she uh had been available, I can hear you laughing, but I can hear you laughing, but the technology is like
Yeah,
um
the the secret sauce of the match, which was Candice
now
LeRae.
there would have been your champion. Now had she been not indisposed, then the match would have been won. But that's all right. I look forward to seeing the takeaway from this is I look forward to seeing more of Candice LeRae uh and what she has to offer the WWE. Okay? But winners: Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Bayley, Naomi, and Io Sky. So great opener for War Games.
You forgot the last set of winners, which was all of us who were watching.
All of us, and you, gentle viewer. Which leads us to, and I'm doing the excited dance. You guys can't see it, but I'm doing it. Second match of the night: LA Knight versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the WWE United States Championship.
Indeed. And I would just like to say that this would have felt incredibly like last minute if it hadn't been for the incredible job that the Go Home SmackDown did of
Yeah,
putting some extra heat
yes,
on this one.
yeah. You ain't wrong.
And the wonderful presentation of the returning Shinsuke Nakamura. All fears that have been stated in an earlier podcast about them, making this a rebrand in name only have subsided.
Yeah,
Shinsuke is coming out as like a dark samurai, totally different vibe. He's added some different moves to the lineup, and his whole approach in ring and psychology seems different. It's fantastic. But I
yeah.
digress.
What a fucking treat. What a treat. As much, and I feel absolutely excited to gush over Shinsuke Nakamura right now, because when he was doing bad, boy did I go hard on the paint on him. When I wasn't happy with his performance, excuse me, in the ring, I let the whole fucking world know it. So I'm gonna let everybody know right now, Shinsuke Nakamura, my man. I'm the biggest mark overnight for Shinsuke Nakamura that I am looking on WWE website to buy myself a Shinsuke Nakamura t-shirt. I was gonna buy other shit. No. Sorry, LA Knight. You're out of here. Okay? It's now Shinsuke Nakamura. Alright, I'm sorry. He rules the roost now. Guys, this match. I also have to give props to the writing team, WWE. You guys have done phenomenal at selling Shinsuke Nakamura as a threat and literally fucking two,
Two
uh,
weeks.
two,
Because
yeah,
it was two SmackDowns that he appeared on, right?
yeah. He comes
Like,
out, he attacks, LA Knight. We're like, the fuck. The next week, I think he cut a promo that we were like, meh, and then he has a match that we were like, right?
yep. Yeah,
But
that match
then,
with Andrade helped a lot too.
yeah, just honestly, right after that match with Andrade, or I'm sorry, you guys don't know who I'm talking about. I'm sorry, I meant Andrade.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm tripping right now. I'm tripping, y'all. After that match, I was so thin. I mean, first of all, his opener, stop, okay, but now his opener for Survivor Series, the shut every front door you have. What
Every
do you
front door.
every front door? Open it and shut it again. My man, amazing. And
Yeah.
right now, all I'm doing is fangirling over his fucking entrance, guys. I haven't even gotten to the match yet.
Yeah, seriously, we got to see two entrances, one on Friday Night SmackDown and then one for Survivor Series, and they were both different. And they were both different from his old entrance. Like
Yeah,
the one on SmackDown implied that it's a kind of a darker theme and tone. The one on Survivor Series, his entrance coming out here is absolutely like nailing home the point that he is a different Shinsuke Nakamura. And it was
yeah,
super cool. Like him coming out with a samurai helmet and then the way he presented in the ring, he has changed up a lot and it really is going a long ways to sell this darker character. What did you say? He could be the sixth member of the Wyatt Six now with his
yeah.
new darker
Seriously, he
theme?
could. Yeah, and he would fit right in. Um, and I'm not saying that he should. I'm saying that he could. I am having way too much fun with him coming out there looking like a dark, unhinged samurai. That like I'm like, man, dude, just keep doing that. Keep doing that for as long as you like, cause I'm here for it. So again, not even talking about the match yet, but now let's talk about the match. Um, Nakamura starts out with mind games. Basically just toying with Knight. Um, he also he does this kick right like early on. Um, it doesn't look like much, but if that kick were to connect, it would have been something. So but he was doing stuff like that, just playing around with LA Knight. And, he didn't like that kind of shit. He didn't like that kind of
No,
shit at
LA
all.
LA seemed like he was loath to want to even touch Nakamura, like the dude was creeping him out so bad.
Yeah, which is a great sell for LA Knight because he's so grounded in like the cold hard. Like when I look at him, I get a Stone Cold Steve Austin vibe. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's so grounded in for lack of a better word, reality, or normality, just like a regular guy who wrestles. That's pretty much like the
Hmm.
vibe. So it's a good sell for him to be freaked out or creeped out more or less with Shinsuke Nakamura's sell of this really dark, like almost supernatural presence surrounding him type character.
Yes.
So good sell. I was here for that. Um, I, man, and of course you guys know who's gonna give you the play by play with the moves and the whatnot. I try. I do my best. I'm like ankle lock. I knew something, but but without doing the play by play, without trying to give you guys the names of cool moves and whatnot. Um, just my opinion of this match. It was a great storytelling. It had great storytelling. Um, the moves were great. LA Knight and Shinsuke looked good together. They worked very well, and I'm hoping whatever comes out of this, I'm hoping that they are trying to create a heat between these two gentlemen because what LA Knight's title run has been missing for the past 100 plus something days is is a viable competitor, real heat
Yeah, a real
on
feud.
a real feud on that belt, which there just hasn't been one. There was hardly one with Logan Paul. But LA Knight,
Yeah,
being the type of wrestler that he is, being like the persona that he's given off, and the type of hype that the audience has for him, this is something because it's almost old school. He almost has like an old school feel to him. He needs one of those old school feuds, one of those rivalries that'll set his championship ablaze. And I think
yeah.
somebody many months ago on a podcast, like somebody with like a big name, said something to that to that respect. Something about LA Knight, like he's great. He's got the fans. He's got the vibe. He's got that old school like attitude era vibe with him, but he's missing that feud. He's missing that wrestler. He's missing his Macho Man, or
Yeah.
his Andre the Giant. He's missing
Well,
that.
you compared him to Stone Cold, and
Yeah.
he is Stone Cold still looking for his Rock feud.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I didn't need to go all the way, but I could have just picked up. Yeah. He's missing that. Um, and I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna be on that level, but I know that if Shinsuke keeps with this particular character, he keeps with this tightness, with this almost like snake like uh quickness,
What was
when he strikes, I mean
Yeah.
like
You
if he
put it
keeps
really
this
well.
up.
You said Nakamura is slow until he's not.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like he's very, very deliberate in everything he's doing as part of this new darker Nakamura. And I think that's good. It gives weight to everything he's going to do in the ring.
Yeah.
But he will definitely go from like 0 to 100 in nothing flat.
Yes.
Like that's a really cool like kind of aspect of Nakamura in this instance.
Yes, yes, and I think just another thing that's really cool about his particular sell of the character that he's given us right now is his he sells the other person's move well too. So the problem, because not everybody can be the Undertaker, right? The Undertaker did a great job of when he was selling someone's move. Uh he sold it very well, but he also had an almost supernatural vibe to him, which at a certain point he sold your move until he didn't, and you knew that that was the shtick of the Undertaker. Uh, Anybody else who's
Yep.
doing like a supernatural type heel vibe, it's very hard to realistically sell your opponent's move, but still look like you're something to be afraid of. The Wyatt Six, I think, do a very good job of this currently, and Shinsuke Nakamura, I think, did an excellent job of it when it came to this match with LA Knight. So basically, what she did was make LA Knight look good, look strong, make his strikes look like they meant something, but also made himself look like a danger. And that ain't easy to do. Like you hear people saying it, but that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, you
And
look at people like Moxley, who is trying to do like almost a militaristic like faction that's very like hard and heavy hitting and stuff like that, and yet when he sells someone's moves, he kind of looks goofy. And no offense to you, John Moxley, but he can have a very goofy like I just got hit type thing that he does, and it's like, oh, stop. And it's different. So I applaud Shinsuke Nakamura for being able to sell LA Knights moves. Like you don't want to short you don't want to sell your opponent short, especially if they're the champion. And I think Shinsuke did a great job of making the strikes that he got. He made them look like they mattered. But he also made it look like what he wanted mattered more, and he pushed through. So he ended up looking not just like someone who should be feared, but somebody who has a passion and a desire for what they want, which is even scarier.
an obsession with what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with you. It's sort of the inverse. Like you made a good point to bring up the Undertaker, and other like historic no sellers. Like there gets to be a point where if you were punching Hulk Hogan, he'd Hulk out of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that can't be all the time and not for every move, or it loses its specialness. It's like a little salt to an otherwise excellent dish can really bring it out, brighten it up. But if
Yeah.
you just pour salt all over it, then it's gross,
Yep.
right? And so an excess of no selling is kind of how I feel about that. Like you have to pick your spots and make it matter, not just for the in-ring psychology and the story you're telling, but just for, not reminding everybody that this is two dudes in a ring play fighting.
Yeah.
Like, because too much no selling really gets that point across.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And it's a slippery slope, because again, if you're being a heel, especially if you're doing a heel that's like that has like a supernatural element to it, then it's a slippery slope, man, on whether or not you're gonna sell this move, not sell it, or sell it too much. You don't want to go from, man, this guy is scary, to, he's not that big a deal, or man, this guy is scary, but there just ain't no, like he's so supernatural, who's gonna beat him? Like, this doesn't even feel fair. You don't want either one of those.
Yeah,
You do want the audience to go, I don't know, can he beat him, because he's done this in the past, or he could do this, or he could do this. That's what you want. You want people to have, like, good conversations, or like, debates about whether or not these two men can go in there and give you, regardless of whether or not it's fake. We know, who cares. But that's the good thing about a character that makes you believe his character. And that's the point I'm trying to get across, and I think I am.
I think so. I agree. Just to kind of give the match rundown, as you mentioned, the early part of the match is mind games, and yeah, it was neat to see LA Knight, who is like an over the top tough guy, come to the ring and look apprehensive about even having to touch Nakamura. like Nakamura's evil's gonna rub off on him, and he doesn't want to catch
Yeah,
it.
like he's gonna get evil cooties.
And
Not the satanic cooties.
not the Satan cooties, yeah. So in the very beginning of the match, you have an apprehensive LA Knight, and Nakamura takes advantage of it, kind of winning early on. But then there's a point where Knight snaps out of it, and I think it was a point where he explodes out of the corner and hits a running clothesline, and then proceeds to start ground and pound attacking Nakamura.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first part of the match, though, it was definitely Nakamura, because LA Knight had kind of apprehensive behavior. But then Knight snaps out of it, and so we end the first the first segment of the match with LA Knight hitting a wrecking ball drop kick to a Nakamura that had regrouped outside the ring. And then Knight proceeds to start bouncing Nakamura's head off of the ringside barricade, as he is wont to do. He's like, it's very much part of his move set to start bouncing people's heads off of like announce
He
tables
loves
and
it.
barricades. And I want to say Nakamura halts the initial head bouncing with a knee lift, and then he starts to toss Knight around the ringside area. But there's a point where Knight takes it back over with a back elbow smash, and that's when he proceeds to dribble Nakamura's head on the ring apron. Then, as we sort of enter the middle portion of the match, Knight throws Nakamura back into the ring, and then he gets in there, and Nakamura hits him with a cross chop, allowing him to throw Knight across the ring. And Knight counters that by kicking Shinsuke in the face. And I want to say he laid him out across the top ropes, because I remember seeing this and it was like, ugh. Because he basically guillotined his ribs across the top rope, and then Nakamura fell unceremoniously back into the ring.
Yeah.
And then Knight hits a flying elbow drop and goes for his power slam, but Nakamura counters and lands back on his feet. There's a brief kind of standing switch exchange And I want to say at this point, Nakamura connected with a discus back elbow, which is that really kind of unique looking back elbow that he's been throwing since he came back.
Yeah.
Like it's over his own back. It's
Yes.
the positioning is very weird to describe, but it looks super cool. Like you wouldn't see it coming because it's just a surprising angle to throw a back elbow from. And I want to say Nakamura followed that up with an axe kick to LA Knight and then a basement drop kick. So a nice strike series out of Nakamura, and it results in a 2 count. And then as LA Knight's getting back up from that, Nakamura, I want to say, hit him with like a combination series of body shots. And then picks up LA Knight and lays him across the top turnbuckle, face down, and then hits a running knee strike to the ribs. And then I think Nakamura proceeded to work on his ribs a little bit more with some kicks. But then Knight grabs hold of Nakamura and dumps him face first on the top rope, a la like Stone Cold Steve Austin's old finisher.
Yeah.
Not the Stone Cold Stunner. And then I want to say LA Knight catches a quick DDT on Nakamura for a 2 count, and that brings us to the end of that particular segment. And then as we enter the closing segment, we see LA Knight whipping Nakamura across the ring. But then Nakamura kicks Knight in the chest. Knight ducks a roundhouse kick, and Nakamura's roundhouse kicks, for the record, are looking better than they ever have.
Yeah.
He's spinning them with enough force that it looks like, man, you better duck or you're dead.
Yeah.
Let's just say he's throwing kicks that Malachi Black would definitely appreciate. And after avoiding the roundhouse, Knight catches Nakamura with a nasty-looking burning hammer. And this was kind of a treat because you don't see you don't see anybody hit a burning hammer that often.
Yeah.
So, let alone LA Knight. So it was sort of a new thing in his repertoire, and it looked gross. Only got a 2 count though. And then I want to say at this point, Nakamura threw Knight into the corner, but Knight kind of countered the follow-up with an elbow smash, and then LA Knight puts Nakamura on the top turnbuckle, and they're trading shots back and forth while they're up there, and Knight sort of loses his footing on the middle rope, then comes back with some elbow strikes, and Nakamura hits him with a step-up enziguri, and then gets LA Knight kind of up there on the turnbuckle from like sitting facing away. And that's when Nakamura is able to actually connect with the avalanche kind of reverse exploder suplex that he's tried to do at least once before. It seems like it's kind of a tough move to get the setup for or to not get countered out of, but he was able to land it, and it looked fairly brutal.
Yeah.
Like LA Knight came down on his shoulder and face, and like I don't mean that in like they look like they flubbed it, just that it was a very mean looking move. And then he goes, I want to say Shinsuke goes for the Kinshasa, but LA Knight avoids it, and counters with a modified side slam. And from there, LA Knight's able to ascend to the middle rope, and he tells the crowd, LA Knight, and they're all like, yeah, and he jumps up and hits that megastar elbow that he likes. And it looks like Knight is setting him up for the BFT. He's doing the little slapped hands that he does while he's waiting for his opponent to take to their feet.
Yeah.
But Nakamura rolls outside of the ring. And
Nakamura said, Nana.
Yeah. And then I want to say there's some attempts at vertical suplexes, but Nakamura then rakes LA Knight's eyes. and they end up making their way when he rolled out of the ring, when Nakamura rolled out of the ring here, since the rings are still put together from the um, War Games match, he had rolled kind of to the middle, not to the outside. And so the attempted vertical suplexes, I think, were LA Knight trying to suplex him back over the middle ropes. And after the eye rake, LA Knight ends up in the middle section where there's this big steel attachment plate that's connecting the two rings. And Nakamura hits a massive reverse DDT, like the exact same kind of DDT that Sting uses, like the Scorpion Death Drop. And that looked like that. At that point, it sort of looked like that's the match for LA Knight because he did not recover well from that. But Nakamura doesn't want to take any chances since the championship's on the line, so he rolls LA Knight back into their original ring and proceeds to drill a Kinshasa into LA Knight to very soundly and decisively pick up the 1, 2, 3 and become the new WWE United States champion.
The audience. There was a guy that they caught in the audience, and they like right as the camera caught his face, he goes, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when LA Knight wakes up, he'll be saying similar.
That made my freaking day. Oh my god, yeah, that's exactly what you want. You want your audience to respond like that. That's what you
This,
want. Like it's risky, but you want it, and
yeah,
boy, it was worth it. I think.
yeah, our jaws were on the floor because we went into it thinking, hopefully this will be a good match, but I don't think Nakamura's taking the belt off LA Knight. Surprised us.
I actually went into this thinking he needed to take the belt off of him. I didn't think he was going to, but then Michael Cole, I believe it was Michael, pretty much said the same thing. Right as I was thinking it, he says, "I feel like this is a must win for Shinsuke Nakamura,"
Yeah,
and I was like, "Yeah, there it is. That's the truth. This is definitely a must win."
yeah. And if it is, as you had suggested, if this ends up becoming like the fuel for a good, nasty feud between him and Nakamura, then this could be great.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine LA Knight is just going to go away quietly and not
Oh,
demand a rematch.
he better freaking not.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this because I think this spiced up the interest in the United States title because it was waning a bit, I think,
Yeah.
because it wasn't really going anywhere great. That was the whole point of wanting him to have a Hellfire feud. Um, because nobody expected this title change. So now everybody's eyes are on, oh, now
Yeah.
we're looking. And I think this was fantastic for returning Shinsuke Nakamura when in the past we've criticized WWE for doing like big repackages that really didn't change much. Like, the most recent example I can cite is like they kept saying like when Asuka came back, she's a different Asuka, and it's like she added one new strike to her combination. Like that was the
Oh,
only thing we saw
that was
different.
it. Yeah. What about Giovanni?
Oh God,
What about
that
that
wasn't a
abysmal
slightly
repackaging?
underbaked like one. That one was a complete flub. Like
Like they
Giovanni
were,
Vinci coming back after all of that pomp and circumstance just to get buried by Cruz was for what point
yeah.
exactly?
And I mean, it just felt like that. Almost felt like a fucking like attack on that dude. Have you seen Cruz since?
No, and I haven't seen Giovanni Vinci since either, but
Yeah. Like
I'm
what?
hoping I'm hoping it's because both of those men when they do come back need to be dealt with correctly instead of whatever that ridiculous crap was.
Yeah.
Um because wasting these repackages really drives me nuts. And I say all that only to then turn around and give WWE mad props for this Shinsuke
Yeah.
Nakamura repackage going so well. Like, just is a contrast, right? Because I don't want to harp on them when they're doing good. This is
Yeah.
good, and here's why. It is way better than what you did with some of those earlier examples. This is how you repackage a guy. You make it actually different, not just like, oh, we put like a little eyeliner on him. Now he's evil. Like it's got to be a bit more meaningful than that.
Yep. Yep.
And this is a total reinvention of Shinsuke Nakamura that I'm really enjoying. Like
Yeah.
down to how he's portraying himself as a character, not just with what he's doing in the ring.
Yep.
His music is now darker and broodier. His whole vibe has changed, and this is like, this is way better to actually see than to just have like Corey and Michael going, "Oh, it's a darker Nakamura," and we're like,
Yeah.
"Where? Where is that? I hear you
Yep.
saying it, but I'm not seeing it." Um,
Yeah.
and then to cap it off, to have him come back and out of nowhere defeat LA Knight, who was looking very dominant, even though he hadn't had any big feuds. Everybody that were throwing him against, he was beating quite soundly.
Yeah.
And then to lose here to Shinsuke Nakamura, I think that altogether fires up interest in the U.S. title. And now people are looking at LA Knight and Shinsuke Nakamura, with interest and maybe differently, and that's good because it was stagnant and now it's revitalized. And it
Yeah.
was, again, for Nakamura specifically, this is great because, like you had pointed out earlier, the last time we had seen Shinsuke Nakamura, he was going against their top guys, right? He was going against Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins and having just kind of craptastic matches. And so it wasn't looking so good for Shinsuke Nakamura. And now this looks like, all right, the
Yeah.
rebirth is good. It's real and it's being given an honest shot to succeed.
Yeah. I absolutely 150,000% agree.
So the second excellent match of this pay-per-view.
Mhm. Probably
And
for me, probably for me, match of the night.
oh, snap, this was match of the night.
Yeah, probably because it told a story and it was a little ballsy. It went out there and it did the opposite of what WWE is known for. WWE plays it safe, and it does so a lot of the time. Even in its Attitude Era, it played it safe on a lot of shit. I know, surprisingly, but it did. And when it went from that to the PG bullshit that was going on with Cena, it really like put on kitten mittens, and it
Yeah.
hasn't really recovered from that. Like it has always done. Well, this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen. So it felt good, and it looks good to have them go, nah, nah,
Yeah,
nah. How
I have
about
no
this?
problems being pleasantly surprised when they take creative risks.
Kind of like that time that we just knew Jey Uso was not winning that belt against Braun Breaker on a fucking Monday Night Raw.
But then he did. Yeah.
And then he did. That kind of stuff, you can keep giving us that kind of shit. Good or bad, whether it's for the heel or for the face, just keep giving us that. Keep giving us those great matches with the crazy storylines. And hey, here, just take my fucking money. Just take it.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they know this, but it's nice when they show this. Is that
Yeah.
much like you were talking about how you have to be careful with no selling, because at a certain point it makes you either like the person that's doing the no selling seems overly invincible,
Yeah.
and at another point you're burying their opponent. So it's like, this guy will never beat this guy.
Yeah.
And you can't
No
go too
selling and
far
selling
in
too
either
much.
direction. Like if you make
Yes.
somebody look
Yes.
invincible or you make somebody look weak or if they no sell the wrong thing at the wrong time, like there's a reason several
Yes.
pro wrestlers in history were very protective of their finish because they don't want it to be just some other normal ass move.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like my seasoning a dish analogy. It is a matter of taste and a matter of feel, but you have to be very careful with that kind of stuff so that because nobody cares if you've run the opponent into the ground and made them seem so weak, then the fight becomes inconsequential. So when
Yep.
we're talking about faces versus heels, there's points where both have to look very strong so that when they inevitably clash, it's going to be an epic battle instead of a one-sided show, to make it make sense.
Yeah.
Um, so you have to not bury the opponent too completely, or you're not really fighting anything that's worth fighting.
Yep. Agreed. And I had to use Moxley. I'm sorry, Moxley. I had to use him as an example because I could think of him in several matches that he didn't want to do or he just didn't like whatever the case. I could see him half-assing the move, like he gets hit and all of a sudden that one hit was so traumatic that he's flying across the ring, and it's like there's a very thin line between selling and selling too much,
Yeah.
and I almost feel like purposely selling too much to make
Yep.
this look ridiculous. And I'm not saying that it like he I know I can guys, as much as this sounds like regardless of what this sounds like, I am not marking out for CM Punk, but that's one of the matches that I could think of where he was doing that, where Moxley was making these really ridiculous faces and flailing his arms around every time CM Punk did a hit, a strike, or something. And I was like, okay, we get it, bro. You don't.
Well, it's also reminiscent of the notorious match where Shawn Michaels oversold everything Hulk
Oh
Hogan
God,
did,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
to the extreme.
yeah, yeah.
And it's like,
So
come on now.
yeah, so one extreme or the other. Stop. Just stop it. Get some help.
Yeah, I think unless you're doing it to tell a very specific story, and even if it's just the story of the match, then you have to be judicious with how you use things like overselling and no selling.
Yeah,
I really think that's an important skill and an important technique that both producers and in-ring workers need to understand.
yeah.
Um, and
Like
I'm only
nobody.
mentioning that as a fan who absorbs the product, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm not a wrestling producer, I'm not a professional wrestler, but I know what makes an impact with me and what I see that impresses me and makes me buy in, and the stuff that I see that sort of takes away from that. And so I'm just offering my feedback from that perspective.
yeah. Uh, like nobody really suffers in this instance except for your fans, like your fan base. Like, I get it. I know I know wrestlers do a lot of shit a lot of times that they don't want to do. They don't control most of the time who they're in the match with and whatnot. But I just think it's important to consider your fan base whenever you're doing some stuff like that. These people paid money. They paid their money to watch you. And while your job is not easy, I'm pretty sure these people aren't rich either. People save
Yeah.
money to come and see you perform.
Well,
And
and those people are the bread and butter. I mean, they are the money that keeps the wheels moving.
yeah, your electricity is on because of them. Um, you got people cutting commentary at tables and desks and whatnot for them. So it's just kind of important, I think, that you consider them.
Yeah.
And time passes. You've been a wrestler for 15 years or so. You've been considering them for that much of time, and you're tired. I totally get it. I understand. Um, but this is a service that you have dedicated yourself to for the sake of those people. And it's hard
Yeah.
to keep it in mind, but you should. And I mean that goes for anybody, right? Anybody doing something for a big group of people. We take our podcast seriously because it's something that we not only love to do, but if somebody ends up listening to it and enjoying it, then we want to make sure we're giving them the best of what we got.
Yep.
And if we
And the
got
most
better,
authentic, right?
yeah,
Like we're not candy coating what we think, but you know,
exactly.
we I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, that's anybody in any kind of service industry. Remember who this is for.
Yeah. And so I mean that's just my little opinion on that. And little side note, it was free. It was free, guys. Free. Don't you try to give me that back. It's free. You take it.
It was priceless.
Yeah. And then this leads us
Oh,
to our exciting third match of the night. Um, sorry, I swear I'm gonna stop ranting and rambling off. We're gonna get to it. The third match, Braun Breaker versus Sheamus versus Ludwig Kaiser in a triple threat match for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. And
Oh
boy,
man.
let
Oh,
me
I'm
tell
so here
you,
for this.
I'm not telling you guys, like, I'm not gonna give you any ending or anything. I'm just gonna tell you that I from the beginning was team Sheamus. Um I want Sheamus to win this damn belt. I have since he's been talking about it. Give it to him. He wants the belt. Don't
Yeah.
make me mom you guys. Let's start smacking hands, yanking belts. Here.
I
You
would
play with it now.
I'd like to preface this by saying I am a fan of all three of these men.
Yeah.
Sheamus, I've been a fan of for the longest time. I mean, the brawling brute is just my kind of guy. I mean, he's a big brawly power wrestler, and that is what I like in pro wrestling. Because this is
Yeah.
the guy you're gonna see like a bunch of grapples from. It's not just all gonna be strikes and submissions and shit. That's not
Yeah.
really my cup of tea. I understand that other people out there like that particular flavor. Earl Grey, good for you. Not my cup of tea. I like the big moves like, vertical suplexes and power bombs and choke slams and all of that. Like, I like the grappling aspect of pro wrestling
Yeah.
and the mean looking nasty throws, the German suplexes. Oh man, I'm here for all of that. So this idea of Ron Breaker and Sheamus in this match, I'm sitting here, this is going to be ridiculous. I admit Ludwig Kaiser did look like the which of these three is not like the others. Um, but I am pleasantly surprised by Ludwig Kaiser, the fact that he's like a millimeter around. He can go with these bigger fellas because
Yeah.
he's got kind of a quick and sneaky style to him, but he mixes in some mean, nasty looking moves to go with it. So this match had a lot of potential for me going into it because I'm really into like all three of these wrestlers, and so it's like one of those matches where I don't care who wins because at the end of it we're gonna win. We the people watching will win.
Yeah.
But a little bit I do want Sheamus to win it because we keep hearing Sheamus say this is the one prize that has eluded him in his illustrious career. So it's like, oh come on, Sheamus, get it.
Yeah.
So moving into this match, um, I immediately wondered how they were going to get it started, and then I wasn't surprised when Kaiser starts backing away to try and get Breaker and Sheamus to go at each other, which is not unintelligent because Breaker and Sheamus have had some animosity over a bout they had on WWE Speed that ran into the
Yeah.
time limit, and it pissed both of them off. So I could see Ludwig kind of being like, "Well, you two get to it, and I'll come in and clean up the pieces." But they didn't fall for it. Instead, what you ended up with was both Breaker and Sheamus attempting to go after Ludwig, and Ludwig was like, "Nope," and he got out of the ring. And at that point, Breaker and Sheamus start, going after each other with the big haymakers and whatnot. And this was just like all of what are the meaty man slaps kind of a thing. That's the saying where it's just two big brutal guys that are just beating the hell out of each other.
Yeah.
That was this. And we sort of get into the beatings. Uh, Breaker reverses out of an Irish whip and starts charging towards Sheamus, and Sheamus kicks the life out of him. But then Breaker ends up recovering by hitting a massive Northern Light suplex on him. And Kaiser, realizing, hey, this is a triple threat match. That means it's no DQ. Immediately goes and grabs a steel chair. And
Like you do.
it looks like Kaiser is trying to do something with that chair, but I want to say Breaker ducks under a couple of clotheslines from Kaiser and then drills him with a running lariat. And then he turns his attention back to Sheamus, and kind of pins him into like one of the corners. And Sheamus, I want to say, counteracted that with a couple of knee lifts and then two really massive looking Irish curse brack breakers. There we go. Back breakers.
Brack breakers.
Brack breaker. And it's looking like Sheamus is about to take control of this match because I mean he hit Breaker with those breakers pretty well. And then Kaiser reminds you that he's in the match by going after the like knee of Sheamus with something akin to a chop block or a kick. And then Kaiser nails Breaker, who is still recovering, with a running drop kick and proceeds to wedge a chair in between the turnbuckles. And at this point, he's setting up the chair and he's so proud of himself, thinking that he's laid out Breaker and Sheamus, only to find out by turning around and jumping almost out of his skin that Breaker and Sheamus have mutually lined up behind him, ready to start beating the life out of him, which they then do. Kaiser becomes a punching bag. And I want to say Sheamus hits a corner clothesline, and then I want to say Breaker then drops Kaiser with a shoulder tackle, and Sheamus then proceeds to launch Kaiser over the top rope, and he looks like he's setting up Kaiser to go for the 10 beats of the Bodhrán, but Breaker ain't standing there for that. He's like, nah, man, this move takes too long. And so he clotheslines Sheamus, and let's see. I want to say when Sheamus gets dealt with, what was it? I think Kaiser at one point ends up getting back in the ring and then hitting Sheamus with a baseball slide dropkick that projects Sheamus out of the ring and over near the steel steps. And as Kaiser is want to do when he sees an opponent that is on the steel steps, he rolls out of the far side of the ring to go for a wraparound drop kick. And he ends up driving Sheamus rib first. He ends up drilling Sheamus with it, and then he picks up Sheamus and drives him rib first into the announce table. And while they're all kind of like fighting on the announce table, Sheamus and Kaiser, Breaker gets out on the apron and does like the flying clothesline off the apron and across the announce table and hits both of them.
Both.
And then I want to say, and I can't remember who he grabbed for it. I think it was Kaiser. But hits him with a huge like Northern Light style suplex on the floor. Actually, it might have been closer to an over the head belly to belly. But that concludes the first segment of this match, and it's like, oh man, they've already killed each other. Like I was waiting for Lance Archer to appear on screen just to say everybody dies.
Everybody dead. And walk away.
Everybody dead. Yeah, past tense. So as we enter the middle segment of this match, you get Breaker slamming Sheamus's head on the announce table, and he attacks Sheamus's now like very injured looking ribs. And I say that because one, he's taken a lot of shots to the ribs at this point, and two, Sheamus keeps grabbing his rib like it hurts. And Sheamus is able to kind of counteract that with some haymakers. But then Breaker just straight bodies Sheamus. Something that the announcers pointed out. They were like, oh my God. And when do you see somebody just straight double leg take down Sheamus like he's nothing?
Yeah.
And you don't. So it was impressive. Like, Breaker is strong as hell. And at that point, Breaker hops on to Sheamus and starts hitting him with the ground and pound, and then gets Sheamus back on his feet and then rolls him back into the ring. And then when he follows, he's stomping Sheamus across the chest over and over, more likely the ribs, but general area.
Yeah.
And there's a point where Sheamus is able to kind of deck Breaker with a back elbow, and Breaker counters this perceived comeback from Sheamus with a couple of knee lifts and goes for a pin, but it only gets like a 1 count, and Breaker starts doing push-ups in the ring off of the kick out, and it was a complete homage to his uncle Scott Steiner, and it was like, all right, I see you. And I think after that, there's a little bit of back and forth between him and Sheamus. Like, I think Breaker is talking smack at him, and Sheamus is like, well, here, let me speak with my hands, and hits a couple of overhead chops and is trying to fight his way up from underneath. But then Breaker like drives his knee into the middle of Sheamus, and at this point, Sheamus's ribs have left the building. But his spine still works because he ends up grabbing Breaker, who was coming off the ropes, with a tilt-a-whirl power slam for a 2 count, and it looked brutal. It was a nice looking slam. And at this point, Breaker's kind of like, okay, he's been laid out for a second, so now here comes Kaiser. And Kaiser jumps in and starts trading blows with Sheamus. And I want to say they end up outside the ring, and Sheamus is then bouncing Kaiser's head on the announce table. Somewhere LA Knight is like, dude, that's my move. And at one point, Sheamus gets Kaiser in a powerbomb position, but Breaker ends up hitting like a flying lariat. And then after that, Breaker dumps Sheamus over the ringside barricade. He's like, I'm done with you. Holla. And that sort of concludes the middle segment, and we're heading into the final segment of this match. We have Breaker in the ring attempting to do the military press slam to Ludwig Kaiser, but Kaiser ends up landing, like he escapes out of it and lands on his feet. I think he went for Breaker's eyes or punched him in the head.
Yeah.
And then Kaiser launches Breaker over the ring steps, and that looked painful. But here comes Sheamus, who was down and out somewhere else, and he's suddenly behind Kaiser, and he gets the 10 beats of the Bodhrán, I want to say, with the ringside barricade. And after that, I want to say Sheamus rolls Kaiser back into the ring. Kaiser heads to the opposite side and rolls back out and grabs Sheamus's shillelagh. And Sheamus steps out there and intercepts the shillelagh and clotheslines Kaiser into the timekeeper's area, like with the shillelagh, like he's using it to reinforce the clothesline. And I'm like, well, bye, Kaiser.
We'll see you later.
He done now. It looked pretty brutal, is what I'm saying. And I want to say then Breaker is talking some smack to Sheamus, and they end up sort of like hammering each other in a strike battle. But Breaker ends up like with that just out of nowhere, like he jumps straight up into a rising knee strike. Like he makes me think, like, did you do Muay Thai at any point? Because like Ong Bak would be appreciative of this. What Tony Jaa. You know, it's neat looking because Breaker like could just do it from like he was previously punching you, and now he's like 2 feet in the air with his knee in your chin.
Yeah.
But after that, I want to say Sheamus ends up getting a hold of Breaker, or Breaker maybe went to the top rope and he gets knocked down, so he's like, you know, taking that shot to the yam bags that they inevitably take when they get dropped on the top turnbuckle like that.
Yeah.
And since he's facing away, this puts him in a position where Sheamus is able to just kind of come up behind him and set him up for the Celtic cross. And I inevitably, whenever I see anybody going for a crucifix powerbomb these days, I'm like, okay, well, what's he going to do to kick out of it? Or what's he going to do to counter it? Because they very rarely let these things fly nowadays. To my
Yeah.
pleasant and wonderful surprise, the Celtic Warrior is able to nail the Celtic Cross on Braun Breaker. And then he goes for the pin. And Breaker kicks out at 2, but it was still a thing of beauty. I love the outsider edge and I love the Celtic Cross. They're both just variants of the same maneuver, but it is so often does it get kicked out of so often that at this point I'm skeptical if they're ever going to let it fly. And so when they do, I'm like, yay!
Yeah.
And after the 2 count, there's some more back and forth between Breaker and Sheamus, trading strikes. And there's a point where I want to say Breaker is able to get Sheamus up on the top, or maybe Sheamus went up there himself. I'm trying to remember, but they end up on the top rope, or Sheamus does. And after some back and forth, it looks like Sheamus fights Breaker off, but then Breaker runs up the ropes and responds with a super Frankensteiner. Or what did they call it? The Breakensteiner? I love
Yes.
that name. That is now forever the name. It's the Breakensteiner. And that leaves Sheamus kind of on the ground, just bark. And there's a point where Breaker picks him up and puts him in a corner, and it's that same corner, I want to say, that Ludwig Kaiser had previously kind of booby-trapped with the wedge chair. And so Breaker tries to charge him there, and Sheamus sidesteps, and Breaker goes just face first, full bore into that wedge chair. And then as he's kind of like reeling from that, Sheamus didn't miss a beat and bounced off the ropes and delivers a brogue kick. And we're like, oh, that's it. That's it, right? But it would have been. It would have been it, except for just before the 3 is able to be counted, Ludwig Kaiser, who, again, remember, he's in this match, he pulls the referee out of the ring. And man, did the crowd turn on Kaiser right then. And the look on Sheamus's face, like he was just like, what the hell? And he's looking at Kaiser like, I will murder you thrice.
Yeah.
And it was great. And everybody who was watching at that point in time knew that if it were not for Kaiser pulling the ref out, Sheamus would be the champion right then and there. Like he had Breaker beat.
I don't even want to talk about it.
But Sheamus, of course, after staring holes in Kaiser, rolls out of the ring to deliver the justified, complete and total ass whooping that Kaiser deserves. However, Kaiser had apparently accounted for this outcome because pretty much the second Sheamus steps out of the ring, Kaiser goes ham on Sheamus with the shillelagh, like just all to the ribs, over and over and over. Like this is a beatdown that I don't think Sheamus would be able to recover from. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. The dude likes to fight, but I mean, this was severe. Kaiser laid into him hard, and you could see the evidence of it showing up on Sheamus's body because you know, with his, what do you call it, a milk bottle tan? Every little like ding and bruise and red well up shows like twice as much, and so you could see evidence of Kaiser beating the crap out of him with that shillelagh.
Yeah, you can see evidence on his body if he sneezed too hard. Okay,
That's true.
So anything he does will show up on him.
That's true. That's very true. So at that point, Sheamus is pretty beat up, and Kaiser rolls him back into the ring. But Sheamus then surprisingly hits Kaiser with a pump knee strike. And
Mm.
we're thinking, oh, snap, because it's that knee that he's won matches with before. And we're like, oh, this is it. So now Sheamus is going to win by beating Kaiser instead. No, 2 count. And so now we see Sheamus really favoring those ribs. And Kaiser does too. So he picks Sheamus up and hits him with the Kaiser roll, which more commonly might be known as a rolling Death Valley driver, but I prefer Kaiser roll.
Mm-hmm.
And Kaiser then sets up to go for his finish, the twisting DDT, but Sheamus blocks it. And then Kaiser starts doubling down on Sheamus's ribs and hits the twisting DDT. And we're like, oh man, Ludwig Kaiser's going to win this thing. But immediately after hitting that twisting DDT, Braun Breaker remembers that he's in this match and spears Kaiser out of his boots. And Kaiser ends up falling out of the ring. And this allows Breaker to set up in the opposite corner. And Sheamus, who stumbles up to his feet after, kind of being pretty badly beat up by Kaiser, then gets hit with another massive spear at Mach 5, and Braun Breaker is able to pick up the victory 1-2-3.
I mean, I guess.
You could feel it. Everybody in that arena was cheering for Sheamus to win. Every time he got close, when he was close to beating Breaker, and then when he was close to beating Kaiser, the crowd was like here for it. And then when it didn't happen, they were like, oh. So everyone wants Sheamus to pick up this title.
Everybody.
And it's not because there's anything wrong with the other two guys. This was a fantastic match on the count of all parties. Like, this was really, really good.
Yeah.
But you just could tell, like, when the ref got pulled out, oh man, they were like, they want Sheamus to get that belt.
I mean, I don't disagree with him. I would like for Sheamus to have the belt as well. Yeah.
Indeed. And I hope he gets it. But it wasn't happening on this night. Although I believe them showing 2 instances where Sheamus potentially had this match won, especially against Braun Breaker, indicates that potentially in the future we're going to see that happen. Because it's very telling when a challenger has you dead to rights beat, but for whatever reason wasn't able to pick it up.
Yeah.
Like,
here's hoping.
So I think in the future we're going to see Sheamus pick up that belt.
Here's hoping. He needs to complete his collection.
I know I've spoken about Kaiser, and Kaiser impresses me because he has really sold the Ludwig Kaiser character, like, so good.
Yeah.
And his work in the ring is very good as well. Like, this dude is aces, and he deserves the push and the attention he's been given.
Oh yeah. I agree with that.
Sheamus is a legend at this point. Like, him and Randy Orton are peers. I have to give a lot of credit to Braun Breaker for being as young as he is in the industry. Him and Solo are kind of in that same spot where they're being given a lot and they are rising to the occasion. Yeah. And Braun Breaker is definitely rising to the occasion, and he's not doing it a la Goldberg style where I'm invincible, because he's taken some losses, and that gives him some character. And I have to say, I'm super impressed with Braun Breaker.
And I am too. I can certainly say that I see a lot of like he performs a lot. He performs like an older person. Like
that doesn't sound good. Like, that makes him sound like he needs a walker.
He performs like an older person, like a seasoned wrestler. Like he's been
like a veteran.
This. Yeah, like he's been doing this for like 20 plus years. And that just ain't the case.
Yeah.
But people like him and Will Ospreay, but I have to point out Braun Breaker a little bit more in this particular instance, because this isn't a normality for big dudes. And it certainly isn't. This certainly isn't normal for big dudes, uh, as well as longevity. Like, we got big dudes now that are, you know, in their 40s, and back in the day that would have been a, guess it's time for you to retire, old man, type thing, like we used to have wrestlers that had run their course by the time that they had reached their 40s, and now we got people like Shelton Benjamin, who's just getting started at 49, right?
Yeah, him and Lashley and MVP. Yeah, yep.
Right. And those are more big wrestlers. Like Lashley, that's a big dude. Those that's more like, as that happens, I feel like both AEW and WWE are gonna have to come up with ways to deal with that particular situation. You can no longer put your 40-plus-year-old wrestler on the shelf because of age. You can't do that anymore. You got guys that are willing to go. And Braun
Yeah,
Breaker, I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. Short
yeah.
of an injury that takes him out, and heaven forbid that. Short of that, I don't see this dude slowing down. I see Braun Breaker being frightening when he reaches 45. Not
He's frightening now, but I see your point.
exactly.
Like this guy has a long career ahead of him if he wants
Yes.
it.
Yes. And I think yeah, if he wants it, if he wants this, man, then this could be his, this could be his. This could be his thing for a very long time. Um and I hope that we have an industry that has grown along with him when that happens.
I
Because I mean,
fully agree.
it's happening now, man. Like I said, it's happening now.
Hmm.
We got wrestlers, Edge. Uh, we have big names that are still, they can still go.
Hmm.
It's no longer, 38. Time to start thinking about when I'm gonna
Yeah,
hang up the wrestling boots. No, 38. Roman Reigns is 38 now, baby. Like,
yeah, yep. And I mean, I fully agree with you that they can't just look at the age and decide, is this a guy we can build with? Is this a guy we
yeah,
can put a belt on? They have to look at their desire and their capability still.
yeah,
You can't just be like, well, arbitrarily, once you cross that 45-year-old threshold, we're never putting a major run on you again. It's time to put over all the young talent. And it's like, yeah, why not all of them? Like everybody who can go,
yeah.
let them go.
That makes
Why
sense.
why arbitrarily hold them back? And I know you said Shelton Benjamin's just getting started. I mean, this dude's had an illustrious career, but he is having a renaissance now.
Yeah,
And this dude looks as dominant as he ever did at 49 or 48.
yeah,
And so you really can't just be like, well, he's an older guy, so we want to build up, like, for the longevity of the product, we want to build up all these young guys because these old guys could die any minute. It's like that's a waste of all of the potential that these dudes still have. So I agree
yeah,
with you wholeheartedly. And as far as Braun Breaker goes, with the potential getting seemingly elongated, it's more about your fitness and your desire than it is about your age, because they're
yeah,
coming up with ways to stay healthy and to stay jacked later and later in life. It's more of like, how long do you want it? And
yeah.
how long can you
Yep.
continue to go?
Also, just to put an end to the mystery, Sheldon Benjamin was born July 9th, 1975. He is 49 years of age right now.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I
So,
knew that it was like between MVP and Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, they were like, it was almost like 48, 49, and 47 or
yeah.
something. So I just couldn't remember who was who.
Yeah, MVP, I think he is the oldest. And Bobby Lashley is younger, I think, than Shelton Benjamin. Yeah, he was born July 16th, 1976, so he's 48.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
Yeah, so we got 48 and 49, and I'm pretty sure, I think the last time I checked, MVP was like 50-51. But let's find out. I now I want to know. Let's see. Let's see. Ah, boy, that's a name. He's 51. Born October 28th,
There it is.
1973. So there you go. 48, 49, and 51.
Yeah. So they're all really close to each other. Although I agree, and maybe it's the facial hair thing. It could be that. But MVP looks older than the other two men.
Yeah.
But then again, Shelton and Lashley are fully clean shaven and bald. So there's nothing that like belies, like, maybe they grow in their hair and it's like gray, So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're an older
Right.
guy. You wouldn't be able to tell by looking otherwise, though. I mean, they
Yeah.
look like they're in the best shape of their lives still.
Yeah.
So,
And that was sorry, I didn't mean to take you off of your topic, but just that was the side note that I feel like the older wrestlers are getting now. That don't mean nothing. Injuries, recovery is better. I think the medical attention given to the wrestlers nowadays are better. The standards for the industry have improved
yep.
greatly
And
since 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
when you combine that with a deeper understanding of nutrition and pharmacology
Yeah.
and medicine and
Yes.
all of that stuff, and
Yes.
these guys could probably go in nearly forever until like they're almost ready to drop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
it's
like if oh my god, the Nature Boy. If the Nature Boy wanted to do it, if he could do it all over again, like if he could rewind time and right now be 45, he could go. I mean, and he wants to wrestle right now. He
yeah, I was
still
about to say, you ask Nature Boy, he's ready to go
like
again.
Nature Boy still wants to go. You know what I mean? Like he is still in the ring. He loves this. But I'm saying now, people who have the spirit, who have the gumption,
The
uh,
desire,
the
yeah.
desire, like Nature Boy has, uh, in this day and age, when they reach Nature Boy's age, if they're still in good health and still in good form, they could still freaking compete, and that's fantastic. And I think, but that's also something that the industry should be planning for and considering. If you want this to be a forever thing, and people like companies like WWE, they want this to be a forever thing, right? That together forever, right?
Yep.
Then you have to consider stuff like, the older these wrestlers get, they aren't just dropping like flies, thank God,
Yeah.
anymore. These
It isn't
dudes are
like
hanging in there.
it isn't like the day of their 45th birthday you immediately present them with a Legends contract. Like it just
Yeah,
doesn't it doesn't need to work that way, and they need to pay attention to how a performer is doing instead of an arbitrary number.
yeah. So, just a side note. Thank you for taking that little trip with me.
Hey, no problem. I think these are all things well worth discussing because it's stuff that the industry does need to look at.
Yeah,
Because we still see some amazing matches from these guys who, would have been stuck on a Legends contract, or you're just Johnny Jobber from here on out. Like all you do is put over other people, and it's like, mm, I think that's underselling the value of some of these individuals, and we're
yeah,
seeing that. We're seeing it crop up. Like again, the Hurt Syndicate is just destroying over in AEW right now.
yeah.
But
So,
back to Survivor Series,
yes.
we enter into our fourth match of the night and the third championship match of the night, which is Gunter, the reigning and defending WWE World Heavyweight Champion, versus Damian Priest. And going into this match, I wasn't sure what to make of it, because Gunter, preceding getting to this point, has looked like a man whose confidence has been shaken since he took that loss at Crown Jewel from Cody Rhodes.
Yeah,
And repeatedly, Damian Priest has gotten up on him in their interactions and promos. And so I was like, wow, is Gunter just going to lose and walk away with his tail between his legs? Or are they
yeah,
going to find a way for it to not go that route? And so I wasn't sure. I really legitimately did not have a clue as to who was taking the belt between these two men tonight.
yeah.
So
I know who I want it to.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Damian Priest, of course.
Damian Priest. Yeah, and but it was they were just selling too much that Gunther was gonna lose. And I mean, and now for their or in their defense, I guess. Um, it wasn't as simple as that. Um, there were other factors that had a hand in it, but so it wasn't that Gunther was faking it. He wasn't. He has that, probably still has that concern, that fear that he's not good enough. Um, but it wasn't what it didn't play a hand in him winning or losing the match. That goes to someone the fuck else.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Um, just to kind of recap this match a little bit, and I think I would do it more justice to kind of tell the story of the match than necessarily each and every move. Early on, you have a very apprehensive Gunter. Like, he doesn't even
Yeah.
want to tie up, and a couple of times he rolls out of the ring to just avoid it. And Damian Priest is like, "Dude, come on, what the hell?" Um,
Yeah.
and then when they do finally lock up, um, fairly early in the match, it looks like Damian Priest has the up on him. But almost equally as early, like just shortly after, Damian Priest attempts, or well, he does it, but it didn't look great. Like, he didn't get him very high. Priest hits a flapjack on Gunter, and afterwards starts favoring his shoulder, his left one, I believe. And it's at this moment that there's a bit of a tone change. Like, Gunter, who was very apprehensive, now sees a weakness, and he wants to target that like a precision sniper now.
Yeah.
And so there's a point after that where once Gunter notices Priest is sort of resting with his left shoulder on the middle rope, and Gunter kicks the crap out of that arm, and then proceeds to drive Priest shoulder first into the steel ring post. And kind of from that moment on, that injury to Damian Priest sort of dictates what happens for the remainder of the match. And it also dictates a lot of Gunter's offense. Like, he is attacking the arm, he's attacking the shoulder.
Yeah.
He's using a lot of like the hyper extend moves. Um,
Yeah, there
and
is a lengthy segment of him basically dissecting
that arm.
that armor part. Yeah.
Yep. Hammerlock takedowns, driving the knee into the shoulder. A lot of wrist locks, chops to that side of the chest so that it kind of impacts the shoulder. Just a whole, like, all of Gunter's offense is about like just destroying that arm of Priest.
Yeah.
And the story being told here is that almost every time Priest is able to try and mount any kind of comeback, Priest will go for a big move or something, and that shoulder just gives out on him. Like, he just can't get the move off. There was a point where he tried to do the Razor's Edge, and he couldn't get the lift because that shoulder was just wrecked. And I want to say there was a point where he did manage to hit his elevated flatliner on Gunter, and that was pretty good. But even there, he ends up favoring the shoulder, and he's not able to pin as effectively, so it only gets a 2 count. And that pretty much sets the tone for a good portion of this. Kind of in the middle of the match, or the middle segment of the match, we get to a point where Gunter is going for the power bomb, but Priest manages to counter and get back on his feet, and he kicks Gunter straight in the face, and Damian tries to apply a triangle choke, and that was pretty interesting because we don't see Damian Priest go for a submission hold hardly at all, let alone a triangle choke, which is essentially what was it? Hell's Gate from The Undertaker was a triangle choke. So it's the same kind of move. So even there, he's like, hey, think of The Undertaker a little bit and me. So it was good. And I want to say we end the middle segment of this match with Priest delivering a super kick and a super kick to Gunter, and then following that up with a kick to the gut. And then as we head into the latter part of the match, is where Priest tries to hit that Razor's Edge, but he just can't catch the lift. And then I want to say Gunter counters by trying to get to the sleeper hold, and he continues like he ends up letting go of the sleeper and then attacks the left shoulder, and then he gets his power bomb off on Damian Priest. And we were like, oh no, with that shoulder, is he going to be able to kick out? And he does at 2. Then Gunter, for reasons, goes to the top turnbuckle. I say that because I'm always leery of these big guys when they go to the top rope. Like, it's like, why? You don't need to.
Yeah,
but he did. And Priest catches him in the corner and is throwing haymakers at him. And Priest ends up climbing up there and delivering a avalanche Hurricane Rana. And that blew my mind. I'm like, Jesus. I just watched Godzilla like Hurricane Rana a T-Rex, and it was insanity. And I'm like, well, I can't imagine that did your shoulder any favors, because you more or less have to land on it out of a Hurricane Rana. But Priest was apparently feeling it, because after the Hurricane Rana, he does manage to deliver the Razor's Edge. And I cheered. I was so happy. I got to see a Celtic Cross and a Razor's Edge. And I had ruled out the Razor's Edge. Like, once he tried it before and it failed because of his shoulder, I was like, well, that's done. And then he was like, surprise! And so that was great. And after the Razor's Edge, he gets a 2 count. And so now Damian goes for the South of Heaven. But he can't pull it off, because when he tries to come in with a supporting arm, that's the shoulder that gives out on him. So he only gets Gunter about halfway up and then lets go, and Gunter lands back on his feet. And Gunter immediately slaps Priest, and that pisses Priest off. So he goes for the South of Heaven again, and I'm like, yeah, now he's going to get it. Nah, he doesn't get it. So Gunter then proceeds to start laying into Priest, and he ends up getting a Kimura lock on him. And I was like, oh man. Because the Kimura lock bends your arm backwards and puts a lot of pressure on the shoulder. And so I was like, man, this is going to get Priest to tap out, right? Oh, no, Priest had a lot of fight in him. So he ends up pulling his way to the bottom rope and forcing the rope break. After that, Gunter hits him with 2 monstrously big clotheslines. And then he's going for a short arm lariat, but Priest avoids that and then turns around and drops Gunter with a lariat of his own. And then he does his rebound lariat, where he sort of walks over to the ropes and then spins around and just lariats the life out of someone. And I was thinking, oh, snap, maybe Priest, you going to get it here? But it's only a 2 count.
Yeah.
And so Priest, for reasons, then goes to the top rope. And Gunter then, jumps at the ropes to force Priest to fall crotch first on the top turnbuckle. And Gunter goes in with a big overhand chop and attempts to go for a superplex, but Priest fights his way out of it. Unfortunately, though, as Priest gets Gunter to fall backwards into the ring, Priest himself spills off onto the apron and then to the outside. And so Priest ends up taking a pretty bad topple off of his own counter. And it is at this point, while Priest is spilled to the outside, that Finn Balor comes out of nowhere. The crowd maybe, and he climbs up the steel steps. And the referee is, of course, distracted in the ring checking on Gunter. So Finn jumps off the steel steps and drills Priest with a coup de grace. And then I want to say Gunter rolls out of the ring and does almost like when they're doing a wraparound, he runs in from the blind side and big boots the shit out of Finn Balor. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Finn got kicked to space. Um, and after that, Gunter goes over to Priest, rolls him back in the ring, hits him with a power bomb, and then does a series of like hammer elbows, akin to what the BCC are known for. Those drop
Yeah.
down elbows that look like they're hitting you somewhere between the shoulder and the collarbone. And of course, it's on the shoulder that Priest has been favoring the entire match. And then Gunter locks Priest up in a variant sleeper hold where the shoulder is bent backwards. And it is from this position that Damian Priest is unable to continue after all of that punishment. And so he's called as knocked out. And the winner and still champion is Gunter by way of referee stoppage.
Yeah, not happy about it. But uh, you know.
Not surprised about it though. There was a
Yeah,
point
not
that
surprised.
we were like, "Oh man, Finn Balor's going to interfere with this, right?"
Yeah,
It was
we
well
knew it.
before it was that point, but we were like, "Oh, you know what? I bet you Finn Balor's going to get in on this somewhere."
Yeah.
And sure enough, so though Damian Priest would very much like to be done with Judgment Day, clearly Judgment Day is not done with Priest.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it because they don't really have anybody else who would be considered heat for Judgment Day. Um, so I mean, I get it, but like why don't you let him be heat for Judgment Day after he gets the freaking belt?
Yep. And now I'm sure come Monday night or tonight actually, when we're looking at Raw, we're gonna see a whole bunch of fallout. We're gonna have Finn Balor come out there like he just found all the Lucky Charms and just rubbing his hands together. He's so delighted that he cost Priest the
Oh,
title.
for
We're gonna
sure, for
have
sure.
Priest with his arm in a sling or something like that, talking mad, crazy death threats to Finn Balor. And we're absolutely going to have Gunter coming back talking about how he, all by
Oh
himself,
my
with no help, like
god!
Ludwig Kaiser had his own business, zero help, all by himself, took out the street trash that was Damian Priest. And
Now
it's just going to be all of that.
here's what uh Judgment Day hopes doesn't happen, or what they should hope doesn't happen. They should hope that the only problem they have to contend with, and this is a big problem, is Damian Priest. What they don't want is for Gunther to come out and go, I am the best there is, the best there was, the best that there ever shall be. However,
And then he turns into Bret Hart.
someone no, no, because then he'd start complaining about everything. And then after that, he turns the attention to one Finn Balor who interrupted his match and put a stain on his beginning or his continuing reigning championship. Sorry, not beginning. And now he not only has a problem with Damian Priest, but he has a problem with Gunther
Oh,
because
yeah, I'm sure that would make Finn Balor giddy, right? I'm sure that's his hope for outcome. Because remember, Finn Balor wants more than anything to get the World Heavyweight title. And so pissing off Gunter is just bonus if that makes Gunter want to have a match with him for the belt.
yeah, that's true. That's
I
true.
just I don't think it would go too well for Finn,
No, God no.
but then
But that's
again,
exactly my point.
it could, and let me tell you how. It could because Gunter has more or less gotten rid of Imperium. Like he told Ludwig Kaiser that he needs to go be his own man and go handle his own business. So Ludwig's
Yeah.
busy. He's got his own shit now. And you know what they did with Vinci. So now Gunter is a man alone.
They
Finn is
just
not.
shit
Finn
all on
has
Italy.
no problems bringing the full weight of the Judgment Day to bear. So, I mean,
Hmm.
admittedly, if you took all of Judgment Day and rolled them up into one wrestler, you might have someone that's worth challenging Gunter. But
Not according to WWE, the game. Not not according to
No,
2K24.
no. But I mean, Gunter, as good as he is, I think he could fend off against JD McDonough and Dominic Mysterio and Carlito for a bit, but eventually he's going to get got. And
Well,
that is exactly the way I could foresee that Finn Balor could end up toppling Gunter for the World Heavyweight Championship.
I can tell you right now, that they don't even need all of them. According to 2K24,
According to 2K24,
all they need is
Dominic
Carlito.
Mysterio will do
No,
it. He
no.
will
No. All they need is Carlito. All
just
they need
Carlito.
is Carlito to come in there and bounce an apple off someone's ass. That's all they need. And then he'll come
Well, hear that, Gunter?
and come straighten it
Chin
out.
up, tits out, and watch for the apple. That's
Watch
that's
for
the
that
advice,
apple.
Gunter.
Yes, because Carlito is on it, according to WWE
Yeah, according to 2K24, yes. Carlito will
2K24.
counter all of your moves and then apple you in the eye. But
According to
but
that.
that is one pathway by which I could see it. But I
That'd
could
be
also
awesome,
see
actually.
I could see them setting up Finn Balor and Gunter, and they're gonna go after it, and it's gonna look briefly like the interference of the Judgment Day is gonna get Finn Balor this belt, and that's when Damian Priest shows up to piss all over Finn's Wheaties and takes his little pot of gold and runs out the building, and then
Yeah.
Finn's like a very angry leprechaun for the rest of his life.
Yeah. No, because listen, if you're not done with Damian Priest, then Damian Priest will not be done with you.
Yep. And God forbid that Liv shows up, because that will just summon Rhea Ripley immediately.
Oh god, immediately. Like
And Rhea
there'll be a
Ripley,
cloud of bats
Rhea
and lipstick,
Ripley
and then she'll appear.
Rhea Ripley is a super wild card, because not only would she kick Liv's ass, but she could kick the crap out of any of the members of Judgment Day.
Yeah, she might give Finn a little bit of what for if she's feeling like it. And see,
And
I'm
she'll give
okay
him
with
what
her
4, what
doing that.
5, and what 6.
And see, I'm okay when she does it because she goes after other women as well. Looking
Oh,
at
so that
you.
is the
Looking at you,
decided distinction
Shafir.
between Marina Shafir and Rhea Ripley. That
Yeah.
and the fact that Rhea Ripley probably stands a head taller than Marina Shafir and has, I don't know, 30 pounds more lean muscle mass. But,
Yeah.
that's the real distinction.
Yeah, one of them can wrestle and the other is Marina Shafir. What? What?
Well, hey, I will put this out there. Marina Shafir, or anybody who hears this and it makes its way, it matriculates to Marina Shafir's ears or booking at AEW, anything, it doesn't matter. If it manages to get there, my challenge is to prove us wrong. Make Marina Shafir
Great again.
absolutely everything. No, oh man, that podcast dead now.
Oh, fuck you
Uh,
guys.
no, but make Marina Shafir great. Like, make that whole
Yeah.
stable as great as you're pitching it. Because my biggest, it's not the only problem, but my biggest problem with that whole Death Rider situation, and I promise I'll circle back. I'm not trying to go too far away from Survivor Series, but my only problem with that situation, and my biggest one, I should say, is that it's one of those, you're telling me one thing and showing me another. Like, what I'm seeing
Yeah.
happen does not line up with the fact that you're saying, oh, he's taking over the entire company and he's taken over the station. And it's like he shows up once, cuts a promo from the parking lot, and then maybe hits one guy with a chair. And that's it. You haven't taken over anything. You've just
No.
disrupted a brief portion of the
Yeah.
televised.
Yes, you basically upset Craig. Craig, the guy who has to deal with the cleanup.
Yeah, or you beat up one of the workhorsemen on the way to the ring. Oh,
Yeah.
whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
Like the Elite, they pile drove Tony Khan. They have a much better claim
Right.
for taking over the
Yes.
business.
Yeah.
So, like,
They
whatever they're doing there needs to feel like the takeover that they're selling me. Like,
Yeah.
you need to start recruiting, you need to go after every piece of gold, and
Yeah.
you need to attack all of your enemies. Now, they did at least part of that recently. Like, the way they attacked Hangman and the way they attacked Jay White was great.
Yeah, no,
Like,
I'm
it's
saying
like,
it. I'm starting to see it. You're right. I'm starting to see it. But when they started out, looking at the acclaim came in and robbed the bank. And then looking at Death Riders came in and broke the janitor's mop.
Yeah, no, I think you meant the elite, but you said the
Oh,
acclaimed. But
I said the
I
Acclaimed.
catch
I'm
your
sorry,
meaning.
the
But yeah,
Elite.
the elite. Yeah, exactly. They attacked the guy who owns the place,
Yeah,
and not come in and beat up a couple of like lower card guys or a janitor. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So this needs to feel more like a takeover. But I'm gonna leave that there because that's a whole conversation for an AEW show.
It sure is.
Moving on from that, though, um, just my final thoughts. I see some potential for where they could go with both but all three of Gunter, the Judgment Day, and Damian Priest going
Yeah.
forward. And there's lots of potential for cool stuff there, including what we have said, which is to, we've got to make the Judgment Day stay relevant, absent Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest.
Yeah.
At least absent them being in it, even if they're the enemies that they're fighting, I mean, anything to make the Judgment Day stick around if their intention is to keep them around. And
Yeah.
it seems like it is. So this kind of relevancy helps the Judgment Day a lot. And so mixing Finn Balor in, getting Gunter pissed off at him, getting Damian Priest, you have this three-way triangle between Finn and Priest and Gunter. There could be some real potential there, and it would be good for all parties. So I'm excited to see where they go with that, even though I was not thrilled at the way this match played out. I think most people wanted Sheamus to win the belt tonight, and most people wanted Priest to win the belt tonight. Hell, most people probably wanted LA Knight to keep his belt. But you know what? We're on the road to WrestleMania, and the bad guys have to win some in order for you to appreciate it when the good guys finally do. So I'm here for it.
I'm here for it too. And I know there are plenty of people who did not want LA Knight to lose his belt. I didn't want him to lose his belt technically, but I'm sorry, no, it's a lie. I can't help it. I'm a heel, guys. I was so happy. It felt great.
Yeah. But I mean, I agree with you. I mean, the heels can
Yeah.
be great, but they have to present a threat. Remember, that was our complaint leading into this final match. One of our complaints about this new bloodline that Solo had put together is that they didn't seem like they were that much, right? Like
Yeah.
clearly they're the discount knockoff version. And they have gone to great lengths to make you realize that Solo Sikoa and his bloodline is no goddamn joke. And they're doing a great job with that. Which brings us to the final match, the men's War Games match featuring the OTC and the original bloodline, which comprises Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn, Jimmy and Jey Uso, Paul Heyman, and the mysterious fifth man, CM Punk. Versus the new bloodline, or the Wolfpack bloodline, or the whatever way you want to distinguish Solo Sikoa's bloodline with the new tribal chief, Solo Sikoa. Solo Fatu. That might be too accurate, actually.
Jacob Sikoa.
But we have Solo Sikoa, Big Bronson Reed, who is the fifth guy who isn't part of the bloodline, but he totally looks like he could be part of the bloodline.
Yeah,
like,
he just
fit right in.
Honestly, when they were having the match, they just looked like 5 Samoans beating up three
Bronson
other
Reed,
Samoans,
Bronson
an
Reed
Irish
looks
guy.
An Irish guy. And a Chicagoan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Bronson Reed looks like he was made to be part of that whole Samoan dynasty bloodline.
Yeah,
You're right.
he did,
And
yeah.
he fit in so seamlessly. I would love to see them continue to work together, honestly, because they do great. Like, man, here is the tag team of nightmares. Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu. End of story.
No, thank you.
All of our
No,
hopes.
thank you.
All of our hopes and dreams that the Street Profits would win a tag title belt end at Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu forming a tag team. That's it.
Yep. Just stop. Just stop right now. Sit down.
Akam and Razar retire upon the formation of Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu.
Real talk. Like, oh, what now? Nah, we're good.
I mean, these are the reincarnation of the natural disasters. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Godzilla and the Wolfman are what you're dealing with. That's two
Yep.
components of the old video game Rampage right there. It's over.
Yeah.
Um,
Bronzilla. Bronzilla.
Bronzilla and the Wolfman Jacob Fatu.
Yes. I mean, honestly, like that would be a nightmare. Um, Now this is a long boy. This is a big boy. This match.
This is a big boy. And just
Um.
to finish the introductions,
Oh yeah.
the other members of the team, the Gorillas of Destiny, Tamatonga and Tongaloa,
Yeah. Hmm.
and
Which
if
did
you will,
okay. Oh yeah. No. This was a big boy match. Um. And so again, you guys already know who's not going to be giving you the play-by-play, and I don't know if Josh will be giving you the play-by-play on this biggin. Probably just some of the highlights of the match, but I could tell you the overall vibe. For me, this match was fun, and I felt like that was the vibe. Honestly, the whole vibe of it was, you know who's gonna win, but just sit back and watch them have a great time getting there. Um, it did the same thing that most of the matches, most of the war game matches that the Bloodline are part of. It tried to tell a story that you would give a shit about, and I think they did a great job with that. Um, the people starting out were Jey Uso and Tama Tonga, who has completely leaned into the thing.
yeah, the
Um,
whole crazy Tasmanian devil kind of,
yeah,
yeah,
and the audience was doing it back to him. So I think that that's if that's how he gets over, then that's how he gets over.
yeah. But
Um,
let's take into consideration that one of the early highlights in this was when
mhm.
Tamatonga attempted to pin Jey Uso when the match has not started, and the
Now,
crowd proceeded to say, "You fucked up," very loudly at him a lot.
if I may, yes, he did. He tried to pin tried to pin Jay for some reason. Um Now I'm gonna chalk it up to nerves, honestly. Like that, this is probably one of the biggest matches that dude has been in, probably ever. And so I'm sure he was nervous as fuck. And he even played along with that. So he's doing his, business, and the audience is doing it back, and then he tries to pin
Yeah.
Jay, and they're like, "What the, you fucked up," and he looks directly at the camera and he goes, "I just want to win." What?
Exactly. Yeah. No, he rolled with it pretty good. I'm giving him shit right here,
No,
but
no,
to be
he
perfectly
deserves to be
honest,
given shit.
eh,
Yes, no, no, no.
to be perfectly honest, though, I was pleasantly surprised by the performances of Tonga and to a lesser extent Loa, because they did not have, outside of that minor hiccup, they did not have any major screw ups and actually looked very good. They
Yeah,
repeatedly hit like some variant that they have come up with of like Magic Killer
yeah.
on a lot of opponents throughout this match, and so I'm going to try to avoid giving any grief to Tamatonga and Tongaloa, because they did not earn any in this match. Again,
Nah,
outside of that minor flub,
yeah,
which was funny, and he rolled with it. It was, they did pretty good.
they did. Um, but you know, it started out with those two, and Tamatonga. It's never been a problem with Tom. Like his in ring work, as far as I'm concerned, it's never been a problem.
It's not the issue. Yeah,
I think WWE just didn't know what to do with whatever personality they had with him. They're probably concerned about whether or not he can cut promos and other stuff. And the thing is, they have to do what they have to do with every other superstar. You gotta let them go. They're either gonna sink or they're going to swim. Like you can't just keep them out of the limelight. And this is not a dude. He's not in a faction that allows him to hide behind everybody else. So if he's going to swim, they're gonna have to let him get wet, man, or
Yeah,
else
you
he's
got to
not
give
gonna.
him a chance.
Yeah, like Solo wasn't cutting great promos when he first started. Roman Reigns wasn't cutting great promos when he
Nope.
first
Roman
started.
had to grow into the tribal chief that he is
You
now,
have
for
yes,
sure.
exactly. So and you have that only happens when you trust your superstar and you let go of the reins for a second. No pun intended,
Ah,
and let him do and let him do the thing. And like Tama Tonga is one of is he's one of those as well.
yeah,
So and I think he did the best with what he could. Like he was nervous, you could tell, but
yeah.
he played to his strengths, and he looked good out there with Jay. Him and Jay looked good together.
They did.
Um
They were putting on a pretty solid match just when it was the two of them for sure.
yeah.
And I do want to mention, um, the I thing might be stupid, but if he sticks with it and keeps leaning into it, everybody's going to be on board.
Yep.
Like that is a truism of pro wrestling. Is that even that gimmick that you thought was dumb initially, if it's persistent and they dedicate themselves to it, and it's going to go over eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually, the crowd will be right back to him.
Yep.
Same way that Jacob Fatu keeps yelling, "I love you, Solo."
They were
Uh,
doing that. They were
he's
already
like,
going,
if I
I
keep,
love
yeah, if he
you.
keeps saying it long enough, it won't be long before the whole crowd, even if they don't like the, secondary tribal chief, is going to be screaming back, "I love you, Solo," because he's going to keep saying it long enough to get them to say it back.
Yeah. And it'll happen. I mean, look at Roderick Strong with this.
Yep,
Or
yep,
Juice Robinson with literally anything.
yep,
Um,
yep. So even if it starts annoying, if you stick with it and you commit to it, then it will go over.
yeah,
I mean, another a good example would be Kurt Angle, right? Like the whole "you suck" chants were not
mhm.
ironic initially, and then later it's a thing that they say with love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but uh, uh, back to this particular match. Um, the start out was strong. Uh, we had I think the next person that came in was
The
it
apocalypse, Big Bronson Reed.
Big Bron? Oh, was it? It was Reed.
Yeah, it was at that moment that Jay knew he fucked up by
Yeah.
going
So
first.
yeah, so he was handling Tama Tonga fairly well. They were looking good together, semi not equal, but I mean Tama Tonga was definitely giving him some business. Definitely keeping Jay busy. But then the timer, 3 minute timer or 5 minute timer for the first group
Yeah, for the first two. Yeah.
went off, and in comes Big Bronson Reed.
Yeah, forget
Uh,
any easing into the match. They're like, here is our cannon. Have fun.
so Reed threw some chairs into the ring when he comes out, and Jay, whenever Reed got into the ring, Jay just started throwing chairs at his face.
Right? It's like he threw in all of the elements of his own demise. He's like, chair, chair, chair. And then he gets in and it's like, ow, ow, ow.
Yeah, Jay was like, "Oh hell no!" and just he fucking threw a chair, and then another chair, and then he threw another one, and eventually Bronson Reed just slapped that chair out the sky, like, "Get that shit out of my face!"
Indeed.
And he tried Jay for the first part of this little bout here. He tried, uh, but no.
Yeah, the team of just being outgunned by both Tamatonga and Big Bronson Reed. I mean, Jay put up a fight initially, but then was like pretty much ran into the wall of Reed with that like standing body block or leaping body block.
Yeah,
And then it just didn't go well for Jay for the remainder of the time that he was in there with those two. He was getting stepped on by both Tonga and worse Reed. Ugh. And
Yeah.
I want to say Reed ends up leveling Jay with like a huge body avalanche, and that's when we get our next entrance,
Yeah.
which is logically Jimmy Uso.
Jimmy. Yeah. And Jimmy, I just wanted for Jimmy's part in this match came out with the I think it was Jimmy, right? Jimmy came out with he did a move that we have never seen him do before.
Yeah, I think a couple of them, but one of them in particular, there was a point in the match where Jimmy Uso got up on the top rope and did like a tornado twisting senton to everybody. And that was the most acrobatic thing I've ever seen Jimmy Uso do ever.
Yeah.
It was crazy and it was awesome. We were both like, what? So apparently Jimmy would like to show the rest of the world that Jay ain't the only one that's got some new moves.
Hey, and let's go. We are here for it, Jimmy. We're here for it. So yeah, for Jimmy's part, he looked real good. Again, we are dealing with and I'm not trying to take anything away from Tama Tonga or his strength or whatever, but Bronson Reed is more than enough for these two gentlemen to handle. So Tama Tonga was just the icing on an otherwise very unpleasant cake. A very, very, very unpleasant cake. So, but we got to see a lot of Jimmy and Jay back together doing their twin brother stuff.
And it was like they had never missed a beat, by the way.
Yeah.
They looked great for having been apart for what, like a year now?
Yeah, yes, exactly. And you may think, because I mean, for a minute there, they were looking good. They were looking on top. But then that 3-minute timer went off. And
And you say to yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen here?
Oh, I bet you are. But I bet you already know, don't you? Yeah. Fatu.
Yep, that's when the bloodline sends out Tonga Loa, right?
No. Tonga Loa stayed in the shadows. Well, yeah, that's it. So, next up was Jacob Fatu. And if Bronson Reed wasn't bad enough, and also I just wanna I applaud Tama Tonga because it was not easy to be the first man in that group, especially with being pretty much held back because your tag team partner is a handicap for you. So, and I mean honestly, that I honestly believe that's probably one of the main reasons why Tama Tonga has been held back. That business that he does isn't enough to hold back a good wrestler if they're good. I honestly think they just don't know what to do with the other one. And since they came kind of as a package deal, the way Jimmy and Jay did, he's paying for it. Tama Tonga is. So I applaud them putting him out there first. And I think he held his own. And I think he did a damn good job. But then Bronson Reed came in to make everything unpleasant. To make everything unpleasant for Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso. And then when they got the upper hand, Jacob Fatu showed up, and then life just started to suck for the bloodline, for the OG bloodline. I think they all got together at one point and did the new bloodline. I think they all got together and did a crucifix slam to Jay. Tonga was over here doing baseball slide drop kicks. Fatu was out here just throwing yeeting Jimmy everywhere.
Oh man, yeah, Fatu is ridiculous. He proceeded to hit both Jimmy and Jay. Remember when we were floored at Jacob Fatu taking Bianca Belair's sort of handspring into a moonsault?
Yeah.
Well, there's a point where Jimmy is between the ropes and the steel cage, and he's standing up, and Jay is on the ground. And Fatu immediately realizes he's got an opportunity here. So he jumps over
Yeah.
Jay and then does a handspring, which, leads him to bounce his feet into Jimmy. So he basically kicked Jimmy in the face and then proceeds to moonsault on top of Jay. So, like, Fatu is ridiculous.
He that one. Okay. Like he's nightmare fuel. Just him alone, nightmare fuel. They didn't even need Reed. Like Reed is just like you just want to cry to yourself and go, man, none of this feels fair. None of this. So while that's going off, it's the 3-minute timer pops off, and now it's time for the OG Bloodline to send out their next man, and CM
Oh,
Punk.
finally some relief. They're going to send
Finally,
in Sami Zayn to help out.
yeah. Well, yeah, they are, because CM Punk was about to, and then Roman Reigns was like, nah. I'm sorry, I keep doing that because of LA Knight. Rip.
LA Knight, yeah.
LA, bro. Um,
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Tensions.
Yeah, so Roman Reigns puts his arm up to block CM Punk from leaving, and he wants Sammy to go in. And Sammy, everybody's favorite redhead, goes, okay. And so then he goes into the ring to, help. Uh, and I mean, he helps, you know.
He helps against Tonga. And
Yes.
then he runs smack dab into a headbutt from Reed. And that was
Yeah.
where the help more or less ended.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. There you go. And then death happens. Um, and then to make matters, worse. So and let me hold on. Let me see. Let me think about something cool that Sammy did. Because I mean, they were all doing cool things. We're just going through it to just kind of give you guys an overview of the match. Um. Oh, that's right. Were you about to say something?
I was gonna help you out with the next cool thing that happened.
Please.
Zayn did, in fact, manage to kind of like stall out Reed a bit by kicking him repeatedly in the chest from the corner. And then Zayn takes out running and does like, I want to say a flying crossbody to Fatu, and Fatu just catches him. And we're like, oh snap, this is not good for Zayn. But then Jimmy comes out and super
That's
kicks
right.
Fatu in the face. And that saves Sami Zayn from whatever awful thing Jacob Fatu was going to do, and we got Zayn and Jimmy doing their little signature handshake. That was
Yes.
cool.
Yes. And that goes back to what I said originally, which is that this match was just about fun. Um, it was about them having a really good time, and they did. I could see everybody in this match having just a good ass time. Um, excuse me. I just kind of want to get into like when the match finally starts, because the storytelling here again was really good. Um, I think so. After Sammy, then we have Tongaloa, I think,
Yep.
that
And just
comes in.
prior, that's correct. And just prior to Tonga coming out, the bad bloodline kind of steals the like control of the match, because there was a point where I want to say Fatu attacks Sami Zayn from behind and Reed headbutts the bejesus out of Jay, and that allows Jacob Fatu to hit the Impaler DDT on Jimmy, and so it's
Yeah.
not looking great for the good guys. And Tongaloa comes out and he looks around and looks around. It seemed like he looked around for an excessive amount of time. We kept looking at him duck under the cage door. We're like, don't hit your head on the cage door. But he grabs a couple of tables and slides them in. And then after that, I want to say, let's see, what did he do? he put the tables in the ring, and I want to say he hits an inverted atomic drop on, I can't remember if it was Jimmy or Jay. But then he also hits a running lariat, and Reed kicks Jay off of, I want to say, a chair. But Loa's mostly doing like strike battles with different people. And there's a point where he dumps Zayn face first on a turnbuckle pad, on the top turnbuckle pad. And then he launches into a nice splash, like a Springer style splash. And I want to say there was a point where they had, I'm trying to remember who it was they had in the corner, but I think it was Zayn. And Fatu tells the cameraman to move the hell out the way. And then proceeds to do a double jump, like as if he were going to do his moonsault. And we were both looking at it and we're like, he's too close for the moonsault. Like Zayn, right? Because he's very close to the corner. And I was like, what's he going to do? And he double jumps up and then drops down. And at first I thought, did he trip? Because I was surprised by this. But he drops down and basically slingshots off the top rope into an Arabian moonsault instead and hits Zayn with it. And at this point, we're just like, oh my God, Jacob Fatu is ridiculous.
Yep.
Like, this dude is so good in the ring. Like, he's almost too good.
Yeah. Like, I don't trust this. Some voodoo.
Yep. But once again, as the next entrant is about to make their way to the ring, the new bloodline is in complete control of the match.
Yeah.
And this time they cut over to the OG bloodline. And it looks like Roman Reigns is going to step up. And that's when CM Punk busts out of the corner and just blasts past him to steal the entrance because he'd been held back that last time and didn't appreciate it. So we're seeing what looks like a lot of tension between Punk and Roman.
Yeah.
But now Punk makes his way down to the ring and he looks around under the ring and finds a toolbox. And the announcers make sure that we're aware of the last time that Punk had a toolbox, which is his Hell in a Cell with Drew McIntyre. And that it can be very bad news when Punk has a toolbox. And it was, because he gets into the ring and just proceeds to start annihilating people with that toolbox. And the person that he annihilates most is Tonga Loa. Like, he hits everybody with it, but he goes to town on Tonga Loa. And we were sitting there thinking, is that how they're going to minimize Tonga Loa's ability to, like, maybe participate in this match?
The answer is yes.
Punk killed him with a toolbox?
Yes, the answer is yes. That's exactly what they're going to do.
And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, and then Punk, who had knocked some of the members of the newer bloodline off into the corners, rushes with like back-to-back rising knee strikes in the corner. And I think he finishes, like, the last rising knee strike, I want to say, was to both Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. And then he grabs, I want to say it was Fatu, and he does a running bulldog into the toolbox to Jacob Fatu. And Fatu, we're sitting there looking at this and like going, wow, well, done with that. Now, Fatu, he ends up no-selling this and rises back to his feet and is screaming and flailing like crazy. And Punk turns around like, what the hell? And Fatu hits him with one of those really nasty, like, uppercuts that typically the Samoan wrestlers use. Roman Reigns uses it to great effect as well. And then he drills Punk with a pop-up Samoan drop. And just like that, Punk is like, brr.
Yeah.
that ends his hot tag into the match, so to speak.
Which he did make me happy, but it was like a damn situation because I mean, like, Punk was coming in hot, And he did it. He did the damn thing until he didn't.
Yeah. But once again, we end up in a situation where we're soon to have our next entrant, and it looks like the new Bloodline have taken control of the match again. With the last little bit leading up to it being Reed driving Zayn's face, into the steel cage, and Tonga Loa lighting up Jay's chest. And so now we have the last entrance for the new Bloodline, which is Solo Sikoa. And he stops when he steps out of the cage and talks some mad shit to Roman Reigns. And as he makes his way down to the entrance to get into the steel cage, he takes turns, like he's barking orders to the new Bloodline, and they each take turns grabbing up a member of the OG Bloodline and bringing their heads to the cage door so that Solo can slam the cage door on their faces. And so he does it to Zayn, and then he does it to the Usos, and I want to say Loa and Punk are in the other rings, so they don't really participate in this, but like Zayn and both Usos got it. And shortly after entering into the match, I want to say Solo grabs Sami Zayn and hits him with the spinning Solo. And then the Gorillas of Destiny hit that modified take on like Magic Killer, which I guess they call Guerrilla Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And Fatu stacks Jay on top of Jimmy, and on Solo's orders proceeds to do the double step moonsault on both of them.
Right.
And then Reed gets up on top and delivers a tsunami to Zayn. And at that point, they have taken out most of the OG bloodline. And so you end up with Punk kind of in the middle of all of them. And they're all surrounding him, and Punk just picks somebody to start trying to swing on, and at that point, the new bloodline just beats Punk into the floor. And after that, Solo proceeds to take a chain that he had, and he locks the cage door, and then proceeds to watch the countdown because he's locked Roman Reigns out of the cage. What the hell?
Yeah, he's like, your ass ain't getting in here.
No. And so this is a pretty good portion where Reigns is like trying to figure out how he needs to enter into this cage. He's looking around, he's pulling on it, like, is there a weak spot that maybe he could sneak into? And then he finally sort of settles on the middle where, he thinks he can get good purchase, and he starts to just climb the cage. And as he's getting up there, it takes him a second for them to realize that Reigns is making the climb. They're like, oh, hey, get him, So the new bloodline starts trying to climb up to meet him on the other side, but Reigns is, fighting him off with haymakers as they try and get up there. And at one point, I want to say he kicked Reed in such a way that Reed gets sort of falls crotch first onto the top rope. And Reigns then kicks Fatu in the face, and Solo finally climbs up there, and Reigns just repeatedly slams Solo's head into the cage, and they all end up kind of they end up getting down off of there. I don't remember if Solo fell badly or if he just fell back onto his feet, but they're all kind of clustered up, and so Roman hits a flying crossbody on all of them. And that's about at the same level or near the same level as Jimmy doing a like corkscrew plancha on people. Was Roman Reigns doing a flying crossbody off the top rope to like all of the new bloodline. And so they're all completely laid out, and Roman is kind of standing tall over them. And that was a cool looking shot, Yep. I want to say Reigns then starts handing out those uppercuts that I was just telling you he uses to great effect.
Yeah.
And he pitches Solo over the middle top rope, I want to say, and then uppercuts him again. And with most of the old bloodline, the new bloodline laid out now, Roman Reigns proceeds to start helping get the OG bloodline back on their feet. So he lifts up Jimmy, he lifts up Jay. He looks at Punk and he's like, whatever. And then he moves on to Sami Zayn. And so Punk is the only one left there having to try and get on his own 2 feet. And Punk like kind of takes exception to it. And that's when Paul Heyman arrives at ringside, and so he's shouting at them. They're all in the first ring near each other, and Paul is outside the ring, and he's shouting at them from the other side of the steel that they need to work together. If only for one night, if they're going to have a chance. And so reluctantly, Roman and Punk sort of turn their attentions away from each other and back towards the new bloodline. And that was kind of an interesting and cool moment right there too, with Paul Heyman kind of like being the glue here. And now that everybody is in the ring and there's been a brief lull in the action, they ring the bell and let us know that War Games has officially begun. And this is when it just sort of all goes to hell. Like they all just start like throwing haymakers and it's just a brawl. Let's see some of the high spots that come out of that. Sami Zayn drilled, I don't remember who, with a tornado DDT. The Usos land a double super kick on Tonga Loa. They also end up delivering the double Us to the Gorillas of Destiny, which is them both doing the Uso splash to them.
Yeah.
And I want to say, let's see, another big high spot. There was a point where Punk and Fatu are fighting, and Reigns and Sikoa are fighting, and Reigns avoids the Samoan spike, and Punk gets Jacob Fatu in position for the go to sleep, and Reigns, after avoiding the Samoan spike, he gets kind of caught up in the ropes because he ran under it, and then as he's running back, Solo Sikoa dodges kind of out of the way, but it looked a little awkward because I think Solo dodged too soon. And so then Roman Reigns runs into Punk with a spear. And so he spears Punk while Punk had Fatu up for the GTS.
Yeah.
And I remember it looked a little off. I don't know if it was because Reigns legitimately got caught up in the ropes or if it's because Solo maybe dodged too early the spear. But because the timing was a little off, it looked more like Reigns more deliberately ran into Punk than I think was the intended design.
Yeah.
Cool spot nonetheless, but a little off with the timing. And then I want to say after that, Solo drills Roman Reigns. Did he? I think he hit him with 2 Samoan spikes, didn't he?
I think so. There were a lot of spikes.
Yeah. And then Big Bronson Reed hits a running Death Valley driver on Punk. And I want to say Fatu attempts to go off for a moonsault on Punk. But this was the moment like where Fatu ends up like it looks like he hurt his knee. Because he didn't quite like the moonsault was wonky and it looked like it failed mid-flight, and Fatu came down and started grabbing his leg. And so Punk avoids the moonsault by way of Fatu injuring himself in the process. And Big Bronson Reed comes in for a senton splash and tries to catch the pin. But it's only a 2 count. And they then showed Jimmy kind of battling it out with Tonga Loa. And Loa ends up sending Jimmy Uso into the steel face first. Fatu manages to struggle back to his feet, but for the remainder of this match, he's selling that his knee is kind of jacked up. And he heads over to Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns, I want to say, like, low blowed the bejesus out of him. Like, I mean, like, he caught air that Roman hit him so hard with a low blow. And then Reigns proceeds to spear Solo Sikoa. But after that, Reigns is getting up from the spear, and Big Bronson Reed hits him with a super kick. And then they've set up a table at this point, and Reed puts Reigns on it. And Reed then climbs to the top of the cage. And I kid you not, I was like, there's no way. There is no way. Big Bronson Reed coming off the top of that cage. Like, I don't care who he lands on. Big Bronson Reed is going to kill himself doing this. Like, that is a ridiculously large man to be trying to fly off of the top of this cage. And he does, though. He gets all the way up there, and he goes for an avalanche tsunami. But at the last second, CM Punk pulls Reigns off the table and helps him get back to his feet. And at this point, Reed's dead. He killed himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If my understanding is correct, I think he legitimately injured his ankles doing that spot. There were a couple injuries that came out of this, but that was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
But after helping Reigns get back on his feet, Jacob Fatu begins to attack Reigns from behind, and he tries to go for the Impaler DDT, but Reigns ends up countering with a Superman punch. And here it is. It's after that Solo hits him with 2 back-to-back Samoan spikes. And then I want to say the Usos step in to break up the count, because it would have been it for Reigns at that point. And they proceed to initiate a super kick party on, I want to say it was against Solo. And then the Usos managed to hit Jacob Fatu with the 1D. And Jay ends up laying Fatu on a table in the other ring. And then he proceeds to, because it looks like he's setting up Jimmy to do something to Jacob at that point. But it looks like Tonga Loa is going to mess up the situation. And so Jay spears him. And I want to say Tama Tonga shows up and starts punching Jay and throws him into the cage. And that's when Zayn steps into the picture and just annihilates Tama Tonga with a big blue thunder bomb. And it's at this point that Jimmy Uso has climbed to the top of the cage, and he delivers a Super Uso splash through the table onto Jacob Fatu.
Yeah.
And my word, this is another one. This is like, we could see it the minute Jimmy landed that move. He looked like he was in agonizing pain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are just some brutal attacks. I'd be real surprised if Jimmy doesn't have like a hurt foot or something going on.
Something.
Because I think it ended up being kind of brutal for him. And after that, Zayn helps the Usos get back onto their feet. Jimmy more so than Jay, because Jimmy obliterated the crap out of himself with that Super Uso splash. And this leaves Solo Sikoa alone with the OG bloodline, because more or less the rest of the new bloodline have like annihilated themselves or been annihilated. Like the Guerrillas of Destiny got obliterated. Jacob Fatu got annihilated by Jimmy's Super Uso splash, and Big Bronson Reed annihilated himself coming off for an avalanche tsunami and basically just hitting table and mat. And so you have Solo Sikoa alone with the OG bloodline, and they're circling him like a pack of angry dogs at this point. And it looks like Roman Reigns is telling him, acknowledge me. And Solo is like trying to, kind of buy himself some time because he sees the situation being not so good for him. But the minute he makes a move, the Usos, I want to say was it Jimmy or Jay? I think it might have been Jimmy, as a matter of fact. But one of them hits him with a huge super kick, and then both of them do a super kick. And then Zayn hits him with a haluva kick. And after the haluva kick, Zayn pulls Sikoa out of the corner and, sends him to Punk. And Punk, with an impressive lift, because Solo's not a small man, picks up Solo Sikoa and hits him with the go to sleep. And off the back end of that, Solo Sikoa kind of flails around, and Roman Reigns hits us with the whole ooh wah and hits a massive spear on Solo Sikoa. And from there, we get 1, 2, 3, Reigns pinning Solo and winning War Games.
Yep.
And that was a ridiculous match. It was amazing. And in some cases, like Big Bronson Reed and Jimmy Uso coming off of the top of the cage, guys, you did hear that Edge broke his foot doing that same damn kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, of course, both men that were involved in that, I think, are currently suffering actual injuries because of it. But it was insane to watch nonetheless. Like, I mean, it's crazy enough that Big Bronson Reed jumps off the top rope now. I mean, that's part of what makes the Tsunami impressive, is that he's such a big guy doing it, and that he climbed to the top of the ring and basically did a belly flop into the middle of a table in the ring is insanity. And same with Jimmy Uso, just basically belly flop diving into Jacob Fatu.
Oof.
And like the table didn't necessarily cooperate. Like it did ultimately, but not before Jimmy went knees first straight into the ground, because only the top part of him really kind of connected with it. And that's what makes me, that's when I think he maybe hurt his foot. But that aside, these guys, they were willing to make that sacrifice to make an impressive match, and boy howdy did they.
Yeah.
This was really, really, really good. And though it took a little bit because of posturing and ego, Roman Reigns, he hugs everybody that's on his team, but he's kind of standoffish with Punk, but eventually they shake hands. And then you have the Bloodline kind of hit their pose inside the ring, with Punk doing the go to sleep pose. He's still not one of the ones. And then they all get out. They all get out to a waiting Paul Heyman, and they all kind of like, "Yay, hey, Paul Heyman!" and they hug and whatnot. And we hear briefly when Punk sees Heyman out there and they're hugging. Punk is like, "Remember, when I come calling for that favor." And then we have all of them sort of make their way back up the ramp towards the entrance. I think we had Sammy and Jay are helping Jimmy, whose foot I think is really goofed up at this point. And they all get back up onto the entrance ramp and they hit the pose again. They throw their ones up, and Punk, who was kind of in the back, very deliberately steps through the others,
as he should have,
and puts up his go to sleep, not to be shown up by anyone.
I mean, he was like literally in the back. If he had done it, then he would have been like, his body would have been covered by everybody else. So
he was, but it was very like, oh, excuse me, and he just sort of pushed like between Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns. He was like, excuse me. So it was good. I mean,
Yeah.
it conveyed the whole thing. And that was how we went off the air for WWE Survivor Series War Games. And man, that was a banger.
It was.
I'm gonna ask you, what would your review be of WWE Survivor Series War Games?
Well,
for, I think it was November 30th.
I believe so. As I'm sure, other people have already like watched the show and talked about it amongst their friends and whatnot. I'm sure that it is no surprise to these people that my rating for Survivor Series is a 10. It's a 10. This was beyond. I mean, it was top tier. Like it was beyond my expectations, and it's probably the best live show I've seen them do, or the best. I guess what do they call it? Pay per view, not pay per view anymore.
Paid live event.
Yeah, paid live event. This is probably the best paid live event that I've seen since since WrestleMania, uh, where Cody won the belt. Um, this was well put together. The storylines were really good. The matches were good. Everybody looked beyond comparable. People looked like fucking Shinsuke. Come on, get out of here. Um, just one of the best like paid like live events or whatever they call them. One of the best that I've seen in a minute. It was fantastic. Um, not one bad match. Not a single bad match. Not
No, all of them
one.
were bangers.
Yeah, not one moment where I was bored. Just not at all. This was definitely uh the highest rating that I have given a show since we've done this. Started this podcast. This is definitely a 10 out of 10 neck nub situation. And that's it. I don't want to take up any more time. That's all I have to say about that. Fan freaking tastic.
Yeah, I am going to agree with you. I generally consider a 10 to be like, this is perfect, right? And I would say that this is a 10 because I think it's as close to perfect from a wrestling show as you could hope for, or that I've ever seen. I mean, if we see something perfecter, then it'll get an 11, okay? But this is a 10. 10 neck
Mhm.
nubs is absolutely top tier. And I'm considering a lot of different things. I'm considering the storytelling was aces. There was not one single bad match. There wasn't even outside of Tamatonga going for a pin in the men's war games. There wasn't a flub anywhere. Nobody tripped.
Yeah.
Yes, a couple of guys got hurt, but I'm not even going to fault them for that because the stunts they were trying to do invite that possibility no matter how safely you try to do them. And they still carried through with the matches. Every match was a banger. The women's war games was absolutely an outstanding and amazing way to introduce this pay-per-view, and it's on theme. It's a war games match to open and a war games match to finish. There's continuity there. It's fantastic, and the women were aces. And then the three matches in between the war games matches were all championship matches. They were all excellent matches, and to my surprise, the most throw together one, or the most last minute one, I should say, was putting together LA Knight and Shinsuke Nakamura. And I have to give some bleed over credit to the SmackDowns that came before that managed to make this match matter, even though it was very last minute.
Yeah.
And then Shinsuke and LA Knight gave us a banger, and then we had a surprise, belt drop. I don't think anyone saw that coming for LA Knight. Especially since Shinsuke Nakamura sort of just showed up 2 weeks ago. Then we had the third match, which is an absolute slobber knocker between Braun Breaker, Sheamus, and Ludwig Kaiser. All three of those men were amazing. The match was killer good. Like, for all the reasons anyone likes pro wrestling, these matches have been everything. Like, they're everything you came to see. And then you had the fourth match, which was Gunter and Damian Priest. And both of those guys killed it, telling the story that they sought to tell, and their in-ring was spotless. It further advanced the story, with Finn Balor and Damian Priest, and possibly, maybe you're right, maybe Gunter or maybe even Finn Balor ends up taking exception to those events because, I mean, just as likely as Gunter being upset that Finn Balor intruded in the match,
Finn Balor could be upset that Gunter running like big booted his face off. So, I mean, there's a lot of cool shit that can spawn off this. It's definitely, not only did they build up this pay-per-view flawlessly, which is more than I can say for the last, like, and I know I'm inviting comparison here, but AEW's Full Gear itself was outstanding, but the build-up to it was terrifically awful. Like, we went into Full Gear with almost no expectations and no real, like, we give too much of a crap. We just hope to see some good wrestling. So they did a great job building this up, and then this pay-per-view did a great job of delivering on every single one of these matches. And you had two match types where a lot of stuff could go catastrophically wrong. I mean, there's risk in any match, but there's a lot of risk in these War Games matches. I mean, even in WWE, where they're less, quote-unquote, hardcore, I mean, you still had Jimmy J coming off of the top. Not Jimmy. We had Jimmy and Bronson Reed coming off the top. And in the women's, we also had Io Sky and Tiffany Stratton coming off the top. And that's incredibly dangerous when you consider how high that is for anybody who is, you know, taking a dive. That is massive. Yeah. So putting it all together, I agree with you. It's a 10. This is top tier. I absolutely recommend anybody who has not seen War Games go out of your way to do so. If you're a wrestling fan, you will not be disappointed, and you will find it to be money well spent, and it'll be a great time. You'll have a real good time. So that's my review for Survivor Series War Games. And with that, we conclude our coverage of WWE's War Games. And I want to thank everybody who joined us for this episode. It was kind of a long one. And I look forward to everyone joining us for our next episode, which I believe will be our coverage of WWE Raw tonight.
Rawr!
Until then, there isn't a lot left for me to do but roll the outro.
Rawr! Bye, guys!
So for everyone who's been listening, thanks for tuning into this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode, and give us a thumbs up, or otherwise let us know if you liked it. If you didn't like it, you can let us know that too. Follow us on social media for more wrestling updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to join the conversation. Until next time, keep cheering for your favorite wrestlers, and remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier. See you in the ring.